Chapter 1270. Boom, boom, boom. In the endless plain, Yi Shiwen and the others personally destroyed the treasure demons. Especially Yi Shiwen. He was even more skilled in slaughtering these treasure demons. After these treasure demons were destroyed, they turned into treasure aura, which was quickly absorbed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen discovered that these treasured energies were able to temper his tyrant body. His tyrant body had made great progress, even though it had been very difficult for it to make any further progress. Therefore, he became even more serious while slaughtering the enemies. Everyone didn't care about Yi Shiwen's performance. These treasure demons weren't strong. They were only around the 4th or 5th heavens of the law manifestation realm. Some of them had even just stepped into the law manifestation realm. It could be said that they were a mix of good and bad. Everyone slaughtered along the way. Along the way, they also encountered many experts who came from outside. They came from different places, but they were advancing towards the same area. Now, Yi Shiwen also knew that this treasure house wasn't just in the hands of Nanbatian. There were a total of 7 keys. The human clan had 2 keys. One was in the hands of the Yi clan's Nanbatian, and the other was in the hands of another powerful human clan, the Wang clan. At the same time, the Sea clan had 2 keys, the Hunter clan alliance had 2 keys, and the Northern Demon clan had 1 key. Hence, there were people from various clans who came to explore the treasure house this time. Similarly, the battles were exceptionally fierce. Even people from the same clan would have to compete with each other, let alone those from other clans. These clans didn't have a good relationship in the ancient Barrens continent. In order to compete for survival space, countless wars had broken out. Although the overall situation was still considered balanced, there were always dirty tricks in private. However, everyone didn't stay outside. After all, although the treasure house was the entire world, in reality, the treasures in the outside world weren't considered too precious. The real treasures were hidden in a treasure house in the depths of this world. That treasure house wasn't as huge as this world. It was also the focus of everyone's competition. After passing through the boundless plains, there was a long river with no end. This long river ran through the entire world, from an unknown source to an unknown destination. The treasury was on the other side of this river. However, crossing this river wasn't an easy task. This was because this river was extremely poisonous. If an ordinary person were to step into it, it wouldn't take long for them to corrode and turn into a pile of bones. At this time, many people had already gathered on the shore. Streams of tyrannical aura soared into the sky, frightening the onlookers. There were even some masters half a step into the celestial realm among them. At this time, they were also trapped here. There was no way to cross. This long river is extremely poisonous. Even birds would find it difficult to cross. Even if they tried to fly over, they would be pulled down by an inexplicable force. Then they would be completely corroded. What? Won't we be able to cross it? Some people asked worriedly. Of course not. There's still a way. Although we can't fly across this long river, there's a treasured ship that goes to and fro this long river every month. If we want to cross it, the only way is to board this treasured ship. Only then can we hope to reach the other side. Then we have to wait for another month. It will be too late by then. Coincidentally, today, a treasure ship will pass by, and we will have a chance to go to the other side. Everyone couldn't do anything about this long river. There was a lot of discussion. There were always people who didn't believe it. They thought that with their tyrannical strength, they could even cross a river and a sea of stars. However, under everyone's eyes, they were pulled into the river by that inexplicable gravitational force. After a while, they completely turned into bones. It seems that we can only wait for that ship, Yi Qianqian said. The others also nodded, but they were very low-key and didn't speak. Although their strength was very tyrannical, there were not only them, but also several experts of the half-step celestial realm. They had almost no chance of winning against experts of the half-step celestial realm. These experts of the half-step celestial realm directly traveled alone. They didn't need to bring any companions at all. Their tyrannical strength was a guarantee in itself. After a while, a huge treasure ship came riding the wind and waves. Looking from afar, this treasure ship was no less than 1,000 feet long and hundreds of feet wide. It could be called a huge ship. Seeing the appearance of this treasure ship, everyone was immediately in an uproar. These experts were at least at the 7th level of the Transcendence realm, so they were immediately excited. Very soon, the treasured ship reached the shore. Strangely, there was no one on the ship. Although the ship was covered in the aura of treasures, it gave off a chill that made people shudder. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Pretending to be mysterious, a bald expert of the half-step celestial realm said with a sneer. He didn't care at all and rushed up. Before, those people had passed through the ship and crossed the other side. There was no reason why they couldn't cross. That was not logical. Then the remaining experts of the half-step celestial realm jumped up one after another and landed on the treasure ship. Soon, the treasure ship that had just docked for not long began to slowly move again. At this time, everyone suddenly became anxious. They rushed to fly up, for fear that they would miss this ship and have to wait for another month. Yi Shiwen and the others also did not hesitate and immediately jumped up. Creak! This treasure ship was like a wooden ship that had traveled for God knows how many years. It made creak sounds. In this calm river with only the sound of waves, it seemed particularly strange. After boarding the ship, many people calmed down a little and began to be a little curious. Since there is no one driving this ship, how does it operate? How does it make it go back and forth every once in a while? Someone asked, but no one could answer this question. The great power involved was already beyond their understanding. Everyone suspected that this treasure house might be the private treasure house of a super big shot in ancient times. Otherwise, it would not be like this. But for them, the ancient things were too far away, and it was not something they could speculate at present. Soon, everyone lost interest and sat down on the ship one after another. They either practiced or recovered their physical strength in order to maintain their peak state. Yi Shiwen and the others were no exception. And this ship didn't know how long it had been traveling on the water. It slowly sailed into a foggy area. The big sun in the sky had also disappeared without a trace. It was pitch black, and there were only twinkling stars in the distance. One by one, everyone woke up from their cultivation. Gusts of cold wind blew, causing them to shiver in fear. "Look, what's under the ship?" someone suddenly exclaimed. Everyone stood up in unison to look below the boat, yet they saw that the entire boat wasn't filled with the extremely toxic river water, and it was filled with boundless blood instead. Within the blood, countless vengeful spirits were trying to climb onto this treasured boat, whereas this treasured boat was sailing in the sky above them, and everywhere it passed, those vengeful spirits were crushed into pieces. Everyone felt their hair stand on end when they saw this scene. Originally, with their cultivation, they could be said to be able to see through the world, and there were very few things in the world that could cause them to be moved, let alone such a horrifying scene. At a glance, an endless number of vengeful spirits were all heading towards the direction of the treasured ship. Even though everyone knew that this treasured ship should be special and should be able to block these vengeful spirits, they still shuddered when they saw this scene with their own eyes. Could these resentful souls be the resentful souls of those who died tragically in this river? Yi Feng narrowed his eyes. At this time, there was no longer that playful smile on his face. His entire person became serious. Yan Feiyang and Jian Weibo couldn't care less about Yi Shiwen. At this time, these strange scenes made them shudder. Even those who came first didn't spread any news about these things. The news that we received before was spread by those who haven't reached this river yet. Yi Yiming said, "Those who came first had an advantage, but those who came later also had an advantage. At least they could get some information from those who came first so they wouldn't be ignorant." Sister Qianqian, why do I feel that we are sailing on the underworld river? It feels like we are going to the netherworld. At this time, Yi Zhilan's words suddenly made the surrounding people's hair stand on end. Not only Yi Shiwen's group, but even the others were no exception. The world of death was an unknown world, even for the top experts of law manifestation realm. It was an unknown domain. Perhaps it was a domain that only deities could touch. Yi Shiwen looked at the blood at the bottom of the boat and still denied the idea of the underworld river. Although he hadn't really seen the underworld river, he had seen the underworld river on the Demon Island. It seemed to be less awe-inspiring than this one. Amazing, amazing. I wonder how many people have been killed to have so many resentful souls guarding the treasure house. Yemo said in amazement. Suddenly, the entire treasure boat shook violently. It seemed as if something had hit the treasure boat. A violent, resentful energy soared into the sky. Is there someone over there? At this time, someone suddenly pointed to the distance and said, "How is this possible? Even birds can't cross that river. How can there be people? This is impossible." Someone immediately refuted. It was simply impossible. But very quickly, everyone knew that it was not a delusion, because on the surface of the river, there really was a tall figure. In the mist, that pair of blood-red eyes stared at everyone, causing them to feel a chill from the soles of their feet to their heads. Chapter 1271. Sure enough, everyone saw a figure that was like a monster in the fog. Is that really a ghost? Yi Zhilan couldn't help but say at this time. So, what if it's a ghost? We are martial artists who cultivate the sovereign realm. Any ghost is nothing. Yin Feiyong said indifferently. If there really is a ghost and dares to appear, only death awaits. However, this figure was not the only one. Soon, many other ghostly figures began to appear on the surface of the river. These ghost figures had a terrifying aura that soared into the sky. Even the weakest one was at least at the 9th level of the law manifestation realm. From the moment the ghostly figures revealed their strength, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. That was because even if the ghostly figures were powerful, they could at least estimate their strength. What they knew was not scary. What was really scary was the fear of the unknown. It could absolutely swallow the whole person. The ghostly figures quickly flew on the surface of the river as if they were walking on flat ground. Although these ghostly figures couldn't fly, it was already beyond everyone's expectations that they could run on the Blood River. They are about to board the ship. Everyone be careful. At this time, how could everyone not understand that these ghostly shadows were coming for them? At a glance, there were actually hundreds of ghostly shadows. Their numbers were almost equal, but the point was that the weakest of these ghostly shadows was at the 9th level of the Transcendence realm. Among these warriors, the weakest was only at the 7th level of the Transcendence realm. Furthermore, they came from various races and factions, so it was impossible for them to cooperate sincerely. Everyone was not a fool. They quickly thought of this possibility. Suddenly, their faces turned pale. Are we going to be completely annihilated here today? There were even some people who were more pessimistic. It was possible that this was a trap. This treasure ship was here to kill all of them and send them to their deaths. Everyone be careful. Yi Qianqian's indifferent face became colder. Braggart, don't worry. I will protect you later. Yi Zhilan was obviously very afraid, but she noticed Yi Shiwen, who was only at the 6th level of the law manifestation realm. She acted like a heroine. Among this group of 9th level of the law manifestation realm masters, only Yi Shiwen could help her regain some confidence. However, she did not have any malice. She had the mentality of a child. At this time, Yi Shiwen really did not know whether to laugh or cry. Everyone who was a little nervous could not help but laugh after hearing this. It eased some of the tension. Boom! With a heavy landing sound, a ghostly shadow came under the ship and directly leaped up. Under the starlight, the black shadow directly landed on the ship, making a heavy landing sound. A warrior at the 7th level of the law manifestation realm was caught off guard. His head was crushed by the ghost figure's claw. All the brain matter was absorbed by the ghost figure, and his original form was directly revealed. It was a demonic beast. It turned out that this was a master of the demon clan. At this time, he could not maintain his human form and directly revealed his original form. This scene was unusually bloody and cruel. Even though everyone had seen this kind of bloody scene many times, at this time, they could not help but feel a sense of sympathy for the death of a rabbit. However, before they could think too much, the other ghost figures also jumped up at this time. Hundreds of ghost figures rushed into the entire treasure ship. Although the space of the treasure ship was very large, there were originally hundreds of people. With the addition of hundreds of ghost figures, it suddenly became abnormally crowded. Playing tricks. At this time, a strong half-step celestial realm master directly made a move. A long spear directly nailed a ghost figure that rushed over to the ground. Looking at the ghost figure screaming on the ground, a somewhat happy smile appeared on his face. What? Not a ghost? Even ghosts are afraid of pain. Ha ha! This ghost figure was quickly killed by the tyrannical chi on his spear. The layer of fog on its body dissipated, revealing only its true body. It turned out to be a strange humanoid creature. Its body was smooth and black, and its face was skinny like a bag of bones. Its mouth was abnormally big, full of sharp teeth, and its eyes were red. It looked like a kind of unknown ghost. Seeing that this half-step celestial realm master killed this ghost figure, everyone suddenly became excited. No matter where these ghost figures came from, they could still be killed. For them, if they could be killed, it would not be so terrifying. Thinking of this, everyone's morale was suddenly boosted. At this time, there were also more than a dozen ghost figures rushing in the direction of Yi Shiwen's group. Ah! Yi Qianqian shouted delicately. Countless brilliance directly slid down from her long sword, illuminating the entire night sky. It also made these ghost figures reveal their true bodies. These ghost figures under the night sky looked extremely terrifying. Puff! The sword light directly rushed into the body of a ghost figure and suddenly exploded. Although these ghost figures are all in the 9th level of the law manifestation realm, they obviously have not learned martial arts. They all act by instinct. This is much easier to deal with. Yi Shiwen immediately saw the clues. These ghost figures were of good quality. They were actually in the 9th level of the law manifestation realm, but they were obviously dominated by cruelty and ignorance. In other words, they actually had no spiritual wisdom. It was unknown whether it was because they were born and grew on this blood river, but these ghost figures all carried a strong resentment. Yi Shiwen even suspected that these ghost figures were simply transformed by the resentment of these dead people. But fortunately, these ghostly shadows didn't know any martial arts. They were fighting based on their instincts, although their instincts were already very terrifying. But who were the people on the scene? It could be said that almost all of them were the top geniuses of their respective forces. Each of the martial arts they had learned was earth-shattering. If these martial arts were to spread out, it would cause a bloody storm. Moreover, the might displayed by these martial arts was far beyond that of the experts of the same realm. So, although there were less than 100 people in the 9th level of the law manifestation realm among them, the whole situation was stabilized. Especially after discovering that these ghost figures could also die, the experts below the 9th level of the law manifestation realm also broke out one by one. At this time, the bald half-step celestial realm expert who was the first aboard the boat said at this time, "Everyone, hold on. It's best to drive all of them off. If my guess is right, these should be the water ghosts in this river. They will only attack the passengers on this treasure boat. As long as we safely reach the other side of the river, it will be fine." At this time, everyone looked over. Sure enough, there were more black shadows gathering in the distance, but they did not all rush over at once. They seemed to belong to different groups. However, after hearing this, everyone did not feel much relieved. One had to know that to cross this river, at least conservatively, it would take a long time. But they had already come here, and they even boarded the boat. There was no way to retreat, and they could only fight to the death. On Yi Shiwen's side, under the lead of Yi Qianqian, everyone began to kill. Everyone soon discovered that these people were actually not so difficult to deal with. At least, they could deal with them. These dozen ghost figures were quickly slaughtered. Although they were all experts in the 9th level of the law manifestation realm, they were like small fries on the road. They might not even be as good as some experts in the 8th level of the law manifestation realm. At least, Yi Zhilan relied on a pair of Amei piercers, a pair of heaven-grade martial art tools, to kill all the ghost figures. Yi Zhilan's Amei piercers quickly attracted the attention of a considerable number of people, especially many people's eyes showed a bit of greed. Didn't they come to this treasure house to hunt for treasures? A pair of heaven-grade martial art tools. Even if they entered the treasure house, they might not be able to find it. They had also seen the power of the heaven-grade martial art tools. Originally, even if these ghost figures were weak, the experts in the 8th level of the law manifestation realm would still have to form a formation to deal with them. After all, there was still a gap between their realms. But Yi Zhilan could rely on the Amei piercers to kill everyone. Yi Qianqian also noticed these people's malicious gazes, and her body also exuded a tyrannical aura, warning these people not to act rashly. But they still underestimated the attraction of the heaven-grade martial art tools to some people. Everyone had managed to slaughter all the ghostly shadows that had boarded the ship with great difficulty. However, some people had quietly surrounded Yi Shiwen and his team. "Little girl, name a price. What do you want to sell this pair of Amei piercers to us?" At this time, an old man slowly walked over. There was a bit of the smell of seawater on his body. He was the master of the Sea Clan. At this time, Yi Shiwen found that the few half-step celestial realm masters also looked over, and he secretly thought that it was not good. If it was only these people, it would be fine, but if those half-step celestial realm masters also wanted it, then it would be hard to say. "Impossible. This was given to me by my father. I will not give it to anyone." Yi Zhilan frowned and said discontentedly. Obviously, she also saw these people's malicious intentions. "Little girl, are you looking down on me? As long as you are willing to hand over the Amei piercers, you can name your conditions." The old man still said unyieldingly. The greed in his eyes could be seen by everyone. Just a moment ago, they were companions fighting side by side, but in the blink of an eye, they became enemies. This change was unimaginable, but this was the most realistic and cruel world. "So what if I look down on you? You are also old. How dare you covet this magic tool?" Yi Feng stopped smiling and said coldly. Chapter 1272. He didn't show any mercy because he knew what kind of situation they were in right now. It could be said that they were surrounded by a pack of wolves. The old man wasn't the only one who coveted the heaven-grade magic treasure. Many other experts at the 9th level of the Transcendence Realm were also very interested. Even experts at the half-step Celestial Realm were looking over. At the same time, Yin Fei Yang, Jin Weibo, and Yi Yunming also released their tyrannical aura, warning everyone not to make a move. The atmosphere between the two sides could be said to be at daggers drawn, and it could explode at any time. The old man's face suddenly fell. Although age couldn't be judged by appearance, his face still turned ugly after hearing Yi Feng's words, especially when he saw the determination of several people. Originally, he wanted to use everyone's greed to force Yi Zhilan to hand over the Amei piercer. Although the Amei piercer might not fall into his hands in the end, there was still a chance. Who would have thought that Yi Qianqian and the others would be so unyielding and had no intention of softening? "I think you guys are courting death. Do you want to go against all of us?" The old man narrowed his eyes and said coldly. He no longer had the fake kindness just now, only a bit of ferocity. "I think the one who is courting death is you." Suddenly, there was a loud shout, and a golden light flashed. In the golden light, a figure instantly rushed to the side of the old man. A big hand spread out and instantly grabbed the old man's neck. All of this happened in a flash. No one could react. Even the old man didn't have time to react at all, and his neck was directly grabbed. Boom! However, there was a loud collision sound, and countless smoke and dust floated. When the smoke and dust dissipated, everyone discovered that the arrogant 9th level of the Transcendence Realm Sea Clan old man had been directly pressed to the ground. His neck was broken on the spot, and his entire body was hit by the terrifying impact on the spot. Countless bones in his body were broken, and he died extremely miserably. And the person who did it was actually Yi Shiwen, who had been silent all this time. Wah 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 wah. There was only the sound of the boat cutting through the water. The hundreds of people on the boat were shocked. There was silence, and there were many ghostly howls in the distance. Unknowingly, the boat had already sailed out of the fog. The river below the boat had also changed from blood water to corrosive and poisonous river water. Not far away was the shore, and countless auras of treasures assaulted their faces. No one expected that Yi Shiwen, who was originally quiet and looked like a bystander, would be so terrifying when he made his move. A ninth heaven of the Transcendence Realm expert was crushed to death on the spot without any time to react. He slaughtered a ninth heaven of the Transcendence Realm expert like he was slaughtering a chicken. No one even saw his movements clearly. If anyone saw it clearly, it would probably be the few masters who were half a step into the celestial realm on the ship. But even so, these half-step celestial realm masters were slightly shocked by Yi Shiwen's speed. Braggart King, Yi Zhilan was the most shocked of them all. At this time, she recalled that Yi Shiwen had said that he would teach Yi Yuchuan a lesson. It sounded very funny before, but now it seemed that perhaps he really had the ability to teach Yi Yuchuan a lesson. No, he definitely had the ability. Yi Zhilan thought that he was bragging. Perhaps he had been laughing at her for being a busybody along the way. Thinking of this, Yi Zhilan suddenly pouted. She felt a little wronged. She felt that she had been cheated and made a clown. Well, when the time comes, I must beat him up properly to vent my anger. Yan Feiyang and Jian Weibo's expressions were a little ugly. They were also very shocked. At this time, how could they not understand that Yi Shiwen must have hidden his strength just now? And it was not just a little bit. Previously, they did not take Yi Shiwen seriously at all. Therefore, whether Yi Shiwen was comparable to the seventh heaven of the Transcendence Realm or the eighth heaven of the Transcendence Realm, they did not care at all. For them, it made no difference. Now it seemed how ridiculous it was. It could even be said that the methods that they used to humiliate Yi Shiwen were as ridiculous as clowns. Looking at Yi Qianqian and Yi Feng, they were not shocked at all. It was clear that they already knew Yi Shiwen's strength. Then, they would probably laugh at their childish behavior just now and treat them like clowns. They might not criticize Yi Qianqian like this, but Yi Feng was definitely like this. Aside from Yi Yunming and Yi Bihan Shak, among this group of people, only Yi Qianqian felt nothing. She was already used to Yi Shiwen's cross-level challenges. Among these people, she was the one who had the most confidence in him. Although Yi Feng didn't show it on the surface, the shock in his heart wasn't any less than everyone else. He had already guessed that Yi Shiwen wasn't that simple. Yi Shiwen was already on par with him in the past. There was no reason for Yi Shiwen to be inferior to him after winning the championship of the tournament and receiving countless resources to train him for 1 year. Sure enough, he shocked everyone as soon as he made a move. However, he still did not expect Yi Shiwen to be this strong. Although this old man was not considered to be at the pinnacle of the ninth heaven of the law phase realm, he was definitely among the tyrannical ranks. Otherwise, he would not have dared to stand out. But even so, he was easily killed by Yi Shiwen. Yi Qianqian and her group were already so shocked, let alone the group of experts who were watching covetously. So strong. A ninth heaven of the Transcendence Realm expert actually can't stop him. So fast. In the blink of an eye, I didn't even see anything clearly, and it was already over. I thought that the weakest in this team was this sixth heaven of the Transcendence Realm kid, but I didn't expect him to be so terrifying. Even this kid at the sixth heaven of the Transcendence Realm is so strong. I'm afraid the strength of the others is even more tyrannical, especially the woman leading the group. I saw her when she killed Ghastly Shadow just now. She's ruthless and not much weaker than this person. Regardless of whether it was the human clan or the experts of other clans, they were all discussing at this time. Many of the original thoughts that were about to make a move were immediately extinguished. What a joke. Although a heaven-level magic treasure is very good, one must be alive to enjoy it. The smoke and dust gradually dissipated, and the golden light on Yi Shiwen's body gradually dissipated. The blood that splashed out could not stain his body at all. It directly slid along the golden light that was like armor and fell to the ground. Yi Shiwen raised his head, and his eyes were deep and cold. He swept across the crowd and slowly said, "Who else is not convinced? Come out and fight." He also understood Yi Feng's purpose in the first place. The only way to deter this group of wolf-like and tiger-like experts who were eyeing covetously was to be more ruthless than them. Only in this way could he deter them. This was also the purpose of Yi Shiwen's sudden attack. Sure enough, as expected, those experts who originally planned to attack covetously gave up their original greedy thoughts at this time. However, as the saying goes, man proposes, God disposes. Just as the matter of the heaven-level magic treasure was about to be over, everyone was also about to go ashore and leave. However, they heard the deep voice of a middle-aged man. He wants it, but you don't give it to him, so what if I want it? Everyone looked up and saw that it was actually the bald half-step celestial realm expert who stood out with a bit of arrogance and indifference on his face. Although Yi Shiwen had just killed a Transcendence 9th level expert in an instant, it did not scare him. After all, he was a half-step celestial realm expert. Even if Yi Shiwen could slaughter the Transcendence 9th level, the level of life of the two was not the same. Although he was not as terrifying as the celestial realm expert, it was more than enough to deal with these people. The faces of Yi Shiwen and the others suddenly turned ugly. They were on guard to prevent the half-step celestial realm experts who were still watching from a distance from joining in. If it was just these Transcendence 9th level experts, they were not ordinary. No matter how many came, there was nothing to be afraid of. They had the confidence to slaughter them all. But if it was a half-step celestial realm expert, then everything would be completely different. At that time, they had no other choice but to flee in panic. But man proposes, God disposes. They still underestimated the greed of this half-step celestial realm expert. Golden Sea Luz practitioner, I didn't expect that at your age, you would actually covet a junior's magic treasure. If word of this gets out, your reputation will not be good. At this time, the spear-wielding half-step celestial realm expert laughed loudly and mocked the bald half-step celestial realm expert. What do you know? I am also an otherworldly rogue cultivator in the endless sea. There is no way to compare with those famous sections. This is a rare opportunity. Do you think I will let it go? The bald half-step celestial realm expert who was mocked, Golden Sea Luz practitioner said indifferently, do you think I don't know that you are also coveting it? You just didn't directly make a move. Don't make yourself so noble. This Golden Sea Luz practitioner was also a tyrannical sea clan expert in the endless sea. In this world, rogue cultivators were equivalent to guerrillas. There was no way to compare with a regular army backed by a regular sect. Every time there was such a clash, there would be blood. Because if these disciples of the big forces killed the small ones, they would provoke the big ones. If they killed the big ones would all come out like a swarm of bees. They could not afford to provoke them at all, not to mention the difference in the resources they enjoyed. At this time, Yi Qianqian said, Senior, we are disciples of the Yi clan. This time, we followed senior brother Nanbatian. I wonder if you can let this matter go for senior brother Nanbatian's sake? She directly used Nanbatian. Chapter 1273. The name of the Yi clan's 5 hegemons was not only resounding in the Yi clan, but they had also fought for the Yi clan for many years. Therefore, even in the entire ancient Barrens continent, they were famous. Especially when many of the older generation experts retired, they were even more glorious. Sure enough, Jean Hai's loose practitioner, who was originally very aggressive, became slightly vigilant after hearing Nanbatian's name. Obviously, Nanbatian's name was resounding enough. However, not long after, he quickly suppressed this trace of fear, or rather, the greed in his heart once again took over. So what if Nanbatian was here? Would he deal with him for a Yi clan's disciple? If that was really the case, then Nanbatian had too many things to manage. He might not be able to manage all of them. Nanbatian. What a great name. However, it is impossible for you to scare me. For Nanbatian's sake, as long as you hand over the heaven-rank magic tool, I will let you go. How about it? Loose practitioner Jean Hai let out a ha sound and said indifferently. Half-step heaven realm experts also had their own dignity. They would not allow others to humiliate them. That means there's no room for discussion? Yi Qianqian frowned. There's no room for discussion. Either hand over the Amei piercer or die. Jin Hai's loose practitioner's tone turned cold. Since he had already offended them, there was nothing to regret. Then let's fight. Yi Shiwen stepped forward and said. At the same time, Yi Shiwen transmitted a message to the others. When the boat reaches the shore, you guys go first. I will hold him back. No. How can I let you hold up the rear? Yi Zhilan quickly said, this matter was caused by me. I will definitely not let you hold up the rear. But is there any other way? Right now, Jin Hai's loose practitioner's killing intent has risen. If we don't do this, none of us will be able to leave. Moreover, I naturally have a way to escape. As long as you guys leave, I will naturally be able to escape. Yi Shiwen said. Everyone's expression was very heavy. Right now, they had to rely on Yi Shiwen, the person with the lowest realm, to hold up Jin Hai's loose practitioner for a chance to escape. This made these self-proclaimed geniuses feel extremely sullen. This Jin Hai's loose practitioner better not let them escape. Otherwise, one day, he will take his head to vent his hatred. Listen to him. Yi Qianqian nodded without the slightest hesitation. She believed that Yi Shiwen would be able to escape. Seeing that even Yi Qianqian said so, everyone could only agree. Yin Feiyang and Jian Weibo had a whole new level of respect for Yi Shiwen when they saw him being so decisive. Their hostility towards Yi Shiwen had also reduced a lot. It seemed as if they had let go of a knot in their hearts. At this time, they suddenly realized that their previous behavior was somewhat childish and ridiculous. They had been constantly targeting Yi Shiwen, and Yi Shiwen had only smiled from beginning to end and hadn't fought back. Although Jin Hai's loose practitioner didn't know what Yi Shiwen and the others were communicating with divine thoughts, the killing intent in their eyes was blatant and undisguised. Presumably, they also hated him to the core. Thinking of this, the killing intent on his face intensified. None of these people were simple. Yi Zhilan, who was merely at the 8th level of the Transcendence realm, but possessed a heaven-grade instrument. Yi Shiwen, who was merely at the 6th level of the Transcendence realm, but was able to slaughter experts at the 9th level of the Transcendence realm like chickens and dogs. And the others were also outstanding and extraordinary. Presumably, they were not ordinary people. This kind of person was the most troublesome to provoke because they had unlimited potential, especially when they were already stuck at the 9th level of the Transcendence realm. God knew when they would step into the half-step celestial being realm. At that time, the only advantage he had would be gone, and this was the most terrifying thing. At that time, he would face the pursuit of a group of young geniuses. As time passed, the gap between them would rapidly widen. However, since he had already provoked them, there was nothing he could do. The best way was to exterminate all of them. This was the most effective way. As for Nan Batian, although Nan Batian and the Yi clan had a great reputation and deterrence, it was unlikely that such a great figure and a colossus would hunt him down just for these people. Moreover, the most important thing was that he couldn't suppress the greed in his heart and couldn't subdue the greed in his heart. At this time, Jin Hai's loose practitioner said, "You guys go. I only want that pair of May piercers. I don't need the rest." At this time, the experts at the 9th level of the Transcendence realm who had already given up suddenly became excited. Their eyes lit up. None of these young people from the Yi clan were simple characters. They must have a lot of wealth on them. Even if they were to divide it up, it would still be a considerable amount of wealth. As for the Yi clan's blame, they didn't care. Anyway, the law didn't punish the masses. Whoever wants to court death, just come. Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes and revealed a murderous aura. His surging blood directly soared into the sky, directly suppressing some experts who wanted to rush up. The incident of Yi Shiwen killing a 9th level expert in an instant was still in everyone's mind. They couldn't forget it. At this time, they suddenly hesitated. Seeing that Yi Shiwen easily suppressed these people, Jin Hai's loose practitioner was a little flustered and exasperated. All of you are trash. He also knew that these fence-sitters couldn't be relied on, but it didn't matter anyway. Since he had made up his mind and had the murderous intent in his heart, he didn't care if he did it himself. Go quickly. At this time, Yi Shiwen suddenly shouted. At this time, the treasure ship that had been sailing had finally reached the shore. Yi Qianqian and the others didn't hesitate at all. They directly turned into streams of light and swept away from the sky. "Where do you think you're going?" Jin Hai's loose practitioner shouted and was about to chase Yi Qianqian and the others in the sky. "Old thief, there's still me." Yi Shiwen shouted and finally made his move. He opened his golden palm, and in an instant, it turned into a monstrous giant palm and slapped down. It was unknown how many kinds of palm techniques were integrated into it. All the essence was contained in it. It directly slapped down towards Jin Hai's loose practitioner. In addition, Yi Shiwen's body technique was incomparably exquisite. The speed of the demon wings was incomparably fast. His body turned into a ball of golden light and already pounced over. His palm even directly enveloped Jin Hai's loose practitioner. "Damn it, scatter!" Jin Hai's loose practitioner shouted. Endless light burst out from his hand and directly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! An incomparably terrifying collision sound rang out. Yi Shiwen's palm was directly shattered on the spot. A terrifying wave of air directly swept out. Jin Hai's loose practitioner directly chased after him, not giving Yi Shiwen any chance to breathe. He didn't care too much about their escape. Everything was under his control. There couldn't be any exceptions. Yi Shiwen opened his palms. Countless rays of light burst out from both of his hands and directly formed a wave of ripples. Boom! A huge roar accompanied by an incomparably terrifying power directly blasted onto Yi Shiwen's body. The air under his feet instantly shattered inch by inch. Then with a loud bang, it completely collapsed. With Yi Shiwen's body as the center, countless cracks of power directly shattered, like a spider web densely packed in the sky. When everyone saw this scene, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Especially those martial artists who were half a step into the heaven realm and below. When they saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end. Although they had long heard that the experts of half a step into the heaven realm were very powerful, being tainted with the two words heaven realm and possessing some of the power of heaven realm experts, such as being able to borrow a considerable part of the power of heaven and earth. A casual attack could even destroy the universe. But when they really saw this scene, they were still so scared that they almost stopped breathing. No wonder some people couldn't step into the heaven realm in this lifetime. This was no longer a battle of the same level. And what made them even more surprised was that this Golden Sea loose practitioner's hateful attack could definitely directly blow up a Transcendence 9th level expert. It wasn't much weaker than when Yi Shiwen killed the Transcendence 9th level old man. And Yi Shiwen actually took it head on, although he kept retreating, trampling the air, and resolving a considerable part of the power. The remaining power in his body still injured his internal organs. Blood flowed directly from the corner of his mouth. This Yi Shiwen's strength was also far beyond everyone's imagination. He could actually take it head on. Was he a monster? Everyone continuously criticized in their hearts. Other than using monster to describe him, they didn't know what else to say. A master of half a step into the heaven realm is only as... Yi Shiwen grinned. "Old bastard, you are now a half step into the celestial being realm. I can't do anything to you, but the wheel of fortune turns. Your greed today will cost you your life in the future." Golden Sea loose practitioner's eyelids twitched. This Yi Shiwen's tenacity was beyond his imagination. What made him even more shocked was that even if Yi Shiwen was forced into such a state, he was still so stubborn. He really thought that Yi Shiwen was just being stubborn. He still had the ability to make these words come true. This was what he was most afraid of. "Kid, do you think you still have the chance to leave?" Golden Sea loose practitioner sneered. He was already going all out. Today he had to make Yi Shiwen stay. Otherwise, he would really suffer a double loss. He also didn't have time to stay here for long. He still had to chase after Yi Qianqian and the others. So in just an instant, he attacked again. A palm spread out and turned into countless golden lights. That endless palm power actually turned into a long golden river in the eyes of everyone. In an instant, the golden waves were monstrous. In an instant, huge waves reached the sky and pressed down towards Yi Shiwen. These golden waves turned into countless strange golden creatures in an instant, sweeping over one after another. Chapter 1274. Facing the monstrous golden waves, Yi Shiwen's whole body was suffused with golden divinity. This was an unprecedentedly strong enemy, so he had to be careful. All the power in his body began to boil. He seemed to have turned into a golden deity as he directly stepped into the waves. Attacking left and right, he continuously destroyed the golden waves that came crashing over, fighting and retreating at the same time. Under the command of Golden Sea's loose cultivator, these golden waves came crashing down one after another. Each wave had the power of 1,000 caddies, capable of crushing stars. It was as if stars were smashing down one by one, simply wanting to directly crush Yi Shiwen to death. Jinhai Lu's practitioner's offensive became even more rapid. There were still countless golden raindrops falling from the sky. These raindrops were as fast as lightning, simply like bullets, blotting out the sky and covering the earth, forming a sky full of bullets. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen only felt that the whole world was being controlled by a special force field. Yi Shiwen only felt that it was very difficult to move. Even breathing was very difficult. It was not like before, when he could casually breathe in a large amount of spirit energy. Now, when he casually breathed, he had to forcefully absorb the surrounding spirit energy along with Zhen Yuan, which was extremely difficult. It was as if he had fallen into a vast ocean. Even his hands and feet were not nimble, feeling as if he had fallen into endless waves. This was the power of a half-step celestial realm expert. Compared to the domain condensed by a law phase expert, a half-step celestial realm expert already had some of the power of a celestial realm expert, no longer so deliberate. Their domain had already merged with the world, and with the help of the world's power, the domain could expand further, and the power was even greater. And it spread out silently, not like those previous domains, as if it was incompatible with the whole world. At this time, how could Yi Shiwen not know that the opponent had probably already opened up the domain? He hurriedly shouted, "Wind and thunder domain!" Suddenly, countless power of wind and thunder gushed out of his body. The sharp and tyrannical power of wind and thunder instantly bombarded the innumerable waves that were crashing towards him. They couldn't pose a threat to him at all. Yi Shiwen didn't spread this domain. Instead, he formed a small domain of about a few meters around him. Because it didn't spread out, the density of this domain was higher, and its power was also stronger. A terrifying killing intention flashed in Jinhai Lu's practitioner's eyes. This killing intention was mixed with a bit of surprise. Yi Shiwen's strength had completely shocked him. If he had already stepped into the 9th heaven of the Transcendence realm, then so be it. However, he was only a 6th heaven of the Transcendence realm warrior, yet he had such power. This made him extremely fearful. If he allowed him to continue growing, he would definitely not be able to suppress them. The potential of these geniuses was simply terrifying. And here I was wondering what it was. It's just a domain? Do you think you can stop me with this? Lu's practitioner Golden Sea sneered. I didn't think that I could stop you, but it's enough to stop you. Yi Shiwen sneered. Jinhai's Lu's practitioner immediately cursed in his heart. Damn it, I've been tricked by him. Although he was confident in himself, if this continued, they would run far away. At that time, he would not be able to catch up to them. This treasure house was simply a world, and it was as big as a world. If they really ran away, he would not be able to catch up at all. You're quite loyal, actually staying behind to block me. What a pity, with your talent. If you grew up steadily, your future would be limitless. But now, you're going to die by my hands. Jinhai Sanrin said coldly. Die in your hands? Old man, you're thinking too much. Yi Shiwen said disdainfully. I dare to stay because I have my own confidence. Confidence? You still want to escape from my hands? If you have the ability, then try and see. At this time, Lu's practitioner Golden Sea let out a roar. Countless golden waves directly bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. Those raindrops were countless bullets that could penetrate mountains. It was incomparably terrifying. If one was hit on the spot, even a Transcendence Realm expert would be blasted into a cloud of blood mist on the spot. Yi Shiwen let out a loud shout. The countless wind and thunder power in the sky turned into sword intent. Under Yi Shiwen's command, they crazily shot out in all directions. Endless sword chi cruised in the sky and actually directly smashed countless waves. The waves bloomed in midair and then were chopped down by the sword chi. But compared to the sword chi, the waves were more powerful. A steady stream of waves rushed over and struck down the sword chi. In the confrontation of domains, Yi Shiwen was at a disadvantage from the beginning. If not for the power of wind and thunder domain attacks that were too sharp, it was estimated that he would have already been defeated by now. Yi Shiwen, this old man's strength, is not just a little bit stronger than yours. With your current strength, there is still no way for you to truly fight against a half-step Heaven Realm expert. Yimo reminded, I know, I just want to stall him. After Qianqian and the others are out of danger, I will leave. Yi Shiwen nodded and said, but even if we want to escape, we can only have a chance to escape after injuring him. In the confrontation of these two domains, Yi Shiwen was completely at a disadvantage from the beginning. That was equivalent to using his own strength to contend against the power of heaven and earth. Although it seemed to be fine for the time being, but that was also the result of him constantly shrinking the domain. Otherwise, it would have already collapsed. Whether it was the power or the understanding of the domain, the opponent was much stronger than Yi Shiwen. Little thief, you can't hold on anymore. As long as you obediently surrender and become my slave from now on, I will spare you today. Jinhai Lu saw that Yi Shiwen was constantly retreating and was gradually showing signs of being unable to hold on, and suddenly said with a loud laugh, "Ha!" Yi Shiwen let out a loud shout, and a ruthless look flashed in his eyes. His whole body's qi and blood instantly surged, and golden divinities swept out in circles, like a golden god of war. He spread out his palm, and countless power of wind and thunder condensed in his hand. Then, it condensed into a big sword. The entire domain shrank at a rapid speed after the power of wind and thunder was absorbed by him. Then it started to collapse inch by inch. But Yi Shiwen didn't care at all, and directly stepped on the golden waves, and directly rushed towards Jinhai Lu to kill. Jinhai Lu saw Yi Shiwen's domain collapsing inch by inch, and was immediately overjoyed. He didn't think too much in his heart. After all, it was already very difficult for a 6th-level Transcendence Realm kid to be able to withstand in front of him until now. Jinhai Lu himself was hidden in the golden waves and violently rushed out. Countless golden lights were rolling in his hands, and it was the law of water element which was reflected in his hands, and it was extremely terrifying. Yi Shiwen's sword split the waves and directly rushed in front of Jinhai Lu. Shua! The innumerable golden waves in Jinhai Lu's practitioner's hand transformed into a long sword on the spot and directly pierced through the air. The sword pierced Yi Shiwen's chest on the spot and shattered the protective domain on his chest. Then, the sword directly pierced into his chest. It directly pierced through as if it was cutting tofu. Poochie! Yi Shiwen's domain collapsed on the spot, and his body was directly hit by the sword. "Ah, kid, you're dead." Jinhai Lu laughed loudly, and his heart was filled with joy. Even he didn't realize that he didn't know when he started to be so happy even when he severely injured Yi Shiwen. If it was before, it would be completely unimaginable. Just a 6th-level Transcendence Realm kid, what qualifications did he have to be his opponent, let alone make him so concerned? In the end, it's still hard to say who's going to die. Yi Shiwen grinned and sneered. Blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth, and there was a faint phoenix cry in his body. A wave of phoenix power surrounded his wound to prevent it from receiving more serious injuries. But his hands didn't slow down at all, and directly drew a golden light in the air and instantly shot out. The momentum didn't decrease, and it condensed into a sword intent. Jinhai Lu was completely unprepared. He originally thought that Yi Shiwen was just struggling on his deathbed, but he didn't expect it to be so terrifying. He was actually seriously injured by Yi Shiwen's deathbed struggle. Moreover, he absolutely didn't expect Yi Shiwen to be so crazy, daring to exchange injury for injury, and injuring him like this. This sword's momentum didn't decrease, and it fiercely slashed towards Jinhai Lu's chest. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it was only a moment. Pucci! Jinhai Lu's body was instantly pierced through by that terrifying sword intent, and a huge, empty, and transparent wound appeared on Jinhai Lu's body in the blink of an eye. Jinhai Lu was blasted away by this huge force, and blood splattered everywhere, and a mouthful of old blood spurted out. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't any better off. Jinhai Lu's cultivator's long sword had also directly cut a huge wound on his body. This was a life-or-death struggle, a life-or-death struggle. If not for this, Yi Shiwen wouldn't even be able to injure a half-step Heaven Realm Master at all. Boom! In the instant that Jinhai Lu was blasted away, his domain also completely collapsed in an instant, and the scene inside was completely revealed in front of everyone's eyes. None of the people present were ordinary people. They were all warriors with profound cultivation. Although it was a battle inside the domain, but they all saw it clearly. No one had expected that Yi Shiwen, in a situation where he was at an absolute disadvantage, could actually think of this kind of idea. Taking advantage of Jinhai Lu's arrogance, and at the last moment, he used his life to exchange a blow, and actually seriously injured Jinhai Lu. What a terrifying sword intent! How can there be such a terrifying sword intent? What's even more terrifying is that this person is so ruthless. Not only is he ruthless to others, he is even more ruthless to himself. This kind of method, even if I thought of it, I wouldn't dare to use it casually. This kid is extraordinary. If he doesn't die this time, his future will be limitless. Chapter 1275. Go to hell for me. Not waiting for everyone to recover from this series of unforeseen events, they heard a terrifying roar, followed by a shocking beam of light falling from the sky and directly bombarding Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! Yi Shiwen was bombarded on the spot, and the huge shockwave directly knocked him into the river. Damn, I was too complacent, Yi Shiwen secretly said, and suddenly felt countless corrosive river water instantly pouring into his body. Yi Shiwen's Jinyuan was almost completely corroded in the first moment, and even with the density of Yi Shiwen's Jinyuan, it was simply impossible to resist the corrosion of this river water. Damn it! Yi Shiwen found that no matter how much Jinyuan he used to resist, it was useless and directly corroded his skin. ZZZZ. That corrosive river water directly corroded his skin, leaving a bloody mark. One must know that his skin had already been tempered by Tyrant Body technique, so a little bit of corrosion would not be able to injure him. But now this river had corroded his skin, leaving a bloody mark, although it had not yet broken his skin, but it was enough to make Yi Shiwen incomparably surprised. At this time, the divinity within Yi Shiwen's body seemed to feel threatened, and directly appeared to protect his body. Those corrosive river water corroded the divinity with a sizzling sound, but was still unable to penetrate the divinity's protection. Although it was still corroded, but it was not directly corroded like a moment ago. In fact, if it was someone else, without a tyrannical body like Yi Shiwen, perhaps they would have been completely corroded in the first moment. But if Yi Shiwen did not have the divinity's protection, he would not be able to persist for too long, and perhaps not even his bones would be left after a short period of time. Yi Shiwen, this is a good opportunity. You can take this opportunity to get rid of his pursuit, and with you holding him back for such a long time, Yi Qianqian and the others should have already left, Yi Mo loudly reminded. And Yi Shiwen nodded. Originally, he planned to directly use the devil wings to escape, but this was one of his trump cards, so he would not expose it as much as possible. Now, that Jinhai Lu's practitioner must have thought that he was already dead, so he could take this opportunity to escape. Mountains and rivers will meet again. Sooner or later, this Jinhai Lu's cultivator will die without a burial place. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes, and a terrifying light flashed in his eyes. Right now, he wasn't Jinhai's opponent, but that didn't mean he wouldn't be Jinhai's opponent in the future, and it didn't mean he would forget this matter. Yi Shiwen urged his divinity to resist the corrosive river water. On the other hand, he was constantly mobilizing the Phoenix regeneration technique to heal the wound that had just been pierced. At this time, Jinhai's loose practitioner was standing in the sky in a rather sorry state. Blood was constantly dripping down from his body. Although Yi Shiwen's sword attack hadn't been able to behead him on the spot, but it was enough to cause a serious injury to him. If he hadn't reacted quickly, he might have died on the spot. But even so, he was severely injured in order to deal with a kid at the 6th level of the Transcendence realm. No matter what, it was not a good thing to hear. "Ah, kid, you'd better die." Jinhai's loose practitioner shouted somewhat crazily. Being forced to this extent by Yi Shiwen, not only was his body severely injured, but even his spiritual cultivation had flaws. It's a pity. This Yi family's disciple is really powerful. He should be proud of being able to force Jinhai's loose practitioner to this extent with a mere 6th level of the Transcendence realm. If he could escape, his future would be limitless. It's a pity that he died prematurely here. So what if he's a genius? There's no shortage of geniuses in this world. Every moment, a large number of geniuses rise, and a large number of geniuses are discovered. But at the same time, a large number of geniuses die tragically. The genius who can persist to the end is a genius. The rest are just nameless corpses on the road of martial arts. After a few years, who will remember them? This is really a lose-lose situation. That kid is dead, but Jinhai's loose practitioner isn't any better. Those Yi family's disciples who escaped probably won't be able to catch up. Not only that, I'm afraid he'll have to face the revenge and pursuit of some people from the Yi family in the future. It was true that no one would say a word for a dead person, but the premise was that he had to be a dead person. If Jinhai's loose practitioner didn't let them escape, then it would be fine. But now that he let them escape, then the situation was another matter. Jinhai's loose practitioner probably won't have much progress in his cultivation in this lifetime. Being forced to this extent by a junior disciple at the 6th level of the Transcendence realm, there's already a flaw in his spirit. His invincible confidence has long been shattered. His future achievements will be limited. Seeing Jinhai's loose practitioner like this, the other experts at the half-step heaven realm suddenly looked at him with different gazes. Jinhai's loose practitioner naturally also saw the change in the others' gazes. There was a bit of pity in them, and he immediately snorted coldly. This time's transaction was considered a loss, but who knew what would happen in the future? However, he didn't continue to stay and suffer the disdainful looks of others. He directly dragged his crippled body and instantly turned into a stream of light, disappearing into the horizon. He could see the malicious intent in the eyes of those experts at the half-step heaven realm. His crippled body was now heavily injured. Once he encountered any one of them, it would probably be disastrous. It was better to leave first. Yi Shiwen didn't know that Jinhai's loose practitioner had already left. The injuries on his body were already mostly healed in just a moment's time, but he still didn't dare to go out, nor was he able to send out his divine sense. This was because the river water was too corrosive. Once his divine sense was released, it would immediately be completely corroded, and there was no way to investigate the situation outside. However, he also calculated that even so, Jinhai's loose practitioner absolutely wouldn't dare to come in, or it could be said that there was no need for him to come in. In their eyes, Yi Shiwen was probably already a dead man. Rushing into this corrosive river water for a dead man, no matter how they thought about it, was not worth it. Since it was not advisable to go out from here, then there was only one other way, and that was to rush into this corrosive river water for a dead man. After thinking of this, Yi Shiwen immediately broke through the waves in the water and quickly swept towards one side. This river seemed to be very extreme, divided into 3 parts. The middle part was a blood river, in which endless rolling blood formed the most important part, and there were also countless resentful souls wailing in it. Yi Shiwen followed the river all the way up for thousands of miles. He guessed that he should already be out of Jinhai's line of sight, and was preparing to go out. Suddenly, he heard the sound of fighting and killing. His heart immediately tightened. In this kind of place, how could there still be people fighting? Suddenly, Yi Shiwen held his breath, restrained his spirit, restrained himself, and quietly waited. He hesitated for a moment and restrained all of his aura. In this kind of environment, Yi Shiwen didn't need to worry about being discovered. After a while, the sound of fighting came from afar and was getting closer and closer. Then, he saw a group of more than a dozen figures fighting in the Blood River. The Blood River was densely packed with ghosts, and many ghosts directly rushed towards these figures to kill. However, in front of these people, these ghosts were simply not enough to stop them. When the appearance of the person leading the group was revealed, Yi Shiwen suddenly became sluggish. This person was none other than Yi Xing. What a coincidence! Yi Shiwen originally wanted to find an opportunity to get rid of Yi Xing, but he didn't expect that he would actually meet him here. It was really a narrow road for enemies. However, in his heart he still felt a bit strange. Why didn't Yi Xing take a boat, and instead chose to enter the river bottom? Even if it was to avoid him, it shouldn't be to such an extent. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Yi Xing's purpose was definitely not simple. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen smiled. Yi Shiwen, Yi Xing has appeared here at this time. He certainly doesn't intend to go sightseeing for 3 days. He must have some other purpose. TSK seized this opportunity to destroy him. Yimo also egged him on from the side. Yi Shiwen didn't speak and just waited quietly. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Yi Xing and the others to pass over him. Since Yi Shiwen had restrained all of his aura, Yi Xing didn't discover him. In addition, in this corrosive river, even those ghosts had no way to survive, let alone other creatures. Therefore, Yi Xing wasn't prepared at all. Yi Xing, what are you looking for? Shouldn't you let us know in advance? At this time, the master of the Jigu clan who was behind Yi Xing said slightly impatiently, "Don't forget, the purpose of our visit is to find Yi Shiwen. If we delay and let him escape, we won't be able to go back and explain. Moreover, this treasure house will only be open for 3 years. After 3 years, even the space channel will be broken. No one can enter, and the key will automatically fly away." The master of the Jigu clan said impatiently, "You can rest assured, Yi Shiwen will definitely not escape." Yi Xing said somewhat impatiently, "Didn't I say that I will kill Yi Shiwen after I find that treasure? Yi Shiwen will die in my hands even if he has that treasure. He is really planning to assassinate me." Yi Shiwen sneered secretly. However, he probably wouldn't have imagined that Yi Shiwen was not far away from them, staring at them. Yi Shiwen looked at their bodies. Each of them had a shield on their body, which could actually resist the corrosion of the corrosive river water. However, the words of the master of the Jigu clan caught Yi Shiwen's attention. This treasure house can only be open for 3 years? How do they know? Is there any secret that I don't know? Thinking of this, he secretly followed them. Chapter 1276. Do you think I don't know? This treasure trove only appears once in tens of thousands of years. If it wasn't for the great forces, they wouldn't have known about it and wouldn't have recorded it. Now, many people still think that this treasure trove was accidentally discovered. In fact, it's not like that at all. Yi Xing said with a little pride. Although he had just learned about it from his father before he set off, he was still unhappy that these people of the Jigu clan were showing off their superiority in front of him. Only those individual cultivators would foolishly wander around like headless flies. Yi Xing said with a smile. Yi Shiwen followed closely behind. He belonged to the group of people who were like headless flies. These people seemed to know, just like Yi Qianqian. Yi Feng and the others obviously had a goal, especially Yi Qianqian. She had a way to break into the half-step celestial realm in one fell swoop. However, Yi Shiwen didn't know anything. At this time, he realized that there was a fundamental gap between him and these people, not only in terms of strength, but also the resources and connections that their elders had managed for tens of thousands of years. These might not be reflected on ordinary days, but at the most critical time, in the most critical place, it could be reflected very clearly. What was the gap? This was the gap. Yi Shiwen and Yi Xing came to a river bottom. As soon as they approached, Yi Shiwen felt a burst of violent fluctuations coming from it. "There's something strange here," Yi Mo said. Yi Xuan nodded. Yi Xing, what's inside? The master of the Jiagu clan asked again. There's a treasure demon in it, Yi Xing said. In the past, a senior of our Yi clan suppressed a treasure demon at the bottom of a river and polished it day and night. That treasure demon was an existence of celestial realm. This treasure demon is very powerful, but I have the personal letter left behind by the senior, so I should be able to subdue it. Then, I will be able to absorb its accumulated power for many years. Then my cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds in one go. Moreover, I will be able to obtain this precious treasure. At that time, no Yi Xuan will be my opponent. Yi Xuan understood that it was because of this reason. At this time, Yimo also opened his magic eyes in Yi Xuan's body. Suddenly, he could see through everything. What a powerful formation! Yimo saw the entire array and couldn't help but sigh. I don't know which guy from your Yi clan sealed this array. Tens of thousands of years have passed, but it can still operate as before. It's a bit like the array that sealed the star Colossus. How so? Yi Xuan asked. He also opened his magic eyes and saw that there were unusual fluctuations in the depths of the river. Those ripples had blocked everyone's sight. Combined with what Yi Xing said earlier, I'm already able to determine that this is definitely a sealing and suppressing formation. Not only is it able to suppress the treasure demon within it, it's also able to ceaselessly extract the cultivation within its body and store it. After being refined for tens of thousands of years, it's already incomparably pure. If anyone is able to obtain this cultivation, then it wouldn't be a problem for their cultivation to rise greatly. Yimo said, no wonder this Yi Xing is so confident that he can kill you. If he really gets his hands on it, then his strength will skyrocket. At that time, I'm afraid that you won't be his match. I'm afraid that you'll run away like a rat when you see him. So, we definitely can't let him get it. Yi Xuan narrowed his eyes and said, we must get rid of him before he gets it. Yi Xuan quietly followed behind Yi Xing. At this time, Yi Xing's hand was pinching a complicated seal. He deliberately avoided the masters of the Jiagu clan. Presumably, he was still very vigilant against them. However, it fell into Yi Xuan's eyes. At this time, the mysterious space in his body also began to operate rapidly. It began to frantically calculate everything about this seal. This secret technique wasn't complicated, so it didn't take long for him to master it. Moreover, he was able to deduce some things about this Zhen method through this secret technique, and these things had been engraved in his mind. Slowly, the outermost layer of the formation opened up bit by bit, revealing an incomparably huge, ancient bronze cauldron the size of a small mountain. Was this the original form of the treasure demon? Is it already dead? Yi Xuan was somewhat puzzled. After all, even if these treasure demons were transformed from magic treasures, but they also had a lifespan. If they couldn't cultivate to the realm of immortality within a specified period of time, then they would certainly die in the future. Then, all of their power would be returned to their body to temper it. Maybe they would have the opportunity to regenerate their spiritual wisdom and transform into a treasure demon again. It was just that this world was much longer than the human world. It doesn't matter. Let's do it. We must not let Yi Xing get that strength. Otherwise, I can only escape. Yi Xuan shouted and instantly attacked. Yi Xuan immediately shot out a big hand to grab Yi Xing and the others. Yi Xing and the others also reacted immediately. They reacted and directly retreated to avoid this big hand. Yi Xing and the others calmed down a little. They looked into the distance and found that the person was actually Yi Xuan. Yi Xuan, you little thief. How could you appear here? This is impossible, Yi Xing said in disbelief, because he was very clear about how strong the corrosive power of this river was. Even a master of the half-step celestial realm would be corroded by it. Yi Xuan also used a special method. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to appear here. How did Yi Xuan do it? The key was, how did he appear here? Could it be that they had been following him and were discovered by him? This was impossible. What's impossible, Yi Xing? Your luck will come to an end today. Yi Xuan said, I know you were scheming against me. I was looking for a chance to get rid of you, but I didn't expect to find you so easily." Yi Shiwen suddenly became angry. Yi Shiwen's words clearly did not take him seriously. He suddenly became angry and said, "Yi Shiwen, do you think you have a sure win? How dare you be so arrogant? What else can I do? Do you think you will be my opponent?" Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "Don't forget how I easily defeated you before. Yi Shukong is still my opponent. I don't take you seriously at all." Yi Shiwen mocked mercilessly. He wanted to thoroughly infuriate him. Once he lost his composure, then it would be the time of his death. "Yi Xing, don't fall into his trap. He is clearly trying to provoke you." At this time, the master of the Jegu clan said directly, "Yi Shiwen is also the ultimate target of our team this time. Since we have found him, we don't need you anymore. You can go ahead and absorb that power. As for Yi Shiwen, leave him to us. No matter how powerful he is, if you step into the half-step celestial realm, will he still be your opponent?" Hearing this master of the Jegu clan said so, Yi Xing completely calmed down. He was right. It would not be worth it if he was provoked by Yi Shiwen. "Yi Shiwen, I can see that you probably heard what I said before, so you want to stop me, right?" Yi Xing was also a first-class smart person. He figured out Yi Shiwen's plan in a blink of an eye, but I won't give you this chance. When I absorb this power and rush into the half-step celestial realm in one fell swoop, I will make you beg for death. I will make you die without a burial place. I want everyone to know that I am the #1 genius of the Yi family. What God's son? What 5 hegemons are not my opponents? How arrogant!" Yi Shiwen's facial expression didn't change, but he was actually a little anxious. If Yi Xing didn't fall for his trick and didn't challenge him to a duel, then wouldn't he have no choice but to cover his head and run away like a rat? Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen immediately did not hesitate. He directly slashed out with his palm, and his figure instantly rushed out. He attacked with a heavy blow, intending to kill all these people. Yi Xing saw Yi Shiwen's actions and sneered in disdain. He sat down cross-legged and pinched a hand seal. Suddenly, the entire Jin method began to rumble. That ancient bronze cauldron suddenly lit up and blossomed with brilliant rays of light. But after a while, it quieted down again. Immediately after that, a torrent of energy flowed into Yi Xing's body from the formation. Yi Xing's clothes suddenly fluttered, and he looked like he was enjoying it. He could not suppress the aura in his body, and it suddenly boiled. "Yi Shiwen, hurry up and stop Yi Xing before he enters the half-step celestial realm. Otherwise, you can only escape in panic." At this time, Yi Mo hurriedly shouted, "Got it!" Yi Shiwen did not hold back at all. This big hand instantly turned into a dragon claw in the air. Great Dragon Capture Technique. He used a heaven-level martial art as soon as he attacked. Its power was extraordinary, and it bombarded the area where the Jiagu clan masters were. Almost all of the Jiagu clan masters were men of sacrifice. In other words, they did not fear death at all. They directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen one by one. Yi Shiwen's Great Capture Dragon technique instantly struck the fastest warrior of the Jiagu clan who had pounced on him. Bang! Yi Shiwen's Dragon Claw directly scratched a big hole in the chest of the Jiagu clan man of sacrifice. He was directly blasted away by Yi Shiwen, and the severe pain made him scream again and again. However, the movements of his hands were not slow. It was unknown what kind of deadly secret technique was used, but the wounds on his body were also healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, his face suddenly turned pale. He looked like he was in his 30s, but now he looked like he was in his 40s. Apparently, he had used the secret technique of burning his life. It was similar to the Phoenix regeneration technique, but the Phoenix regeneration technique was obviously many times more exquisite than this secret technique. Chapter 1277. Phoenix regeneration technique was essentially a healing technique that consumed vitality. In other words, as long as it was a healing technique, it would definitely consume vitality. Healing was generally carried out after cell division. However, the number of cell divisions in a person's life was very limited, which resulted in a large consumption of vitality. Warriors fought frequently, and injuries were simply a common occurrence. Therefore, even warriors who had surpassed the longevity realm had a lifespan of tens of thousands of years. However, those who could really live for 10,000 years were simply rare. Those who could live for 8 or 9,000 years were very rare. Most people had a lifespan of tens of thousands of years, but there were not many who could live for more than 5,000 years. Most people died in battle, and the remaining people, because of the previous battle, consumed too much of their lifespan, resulting in a short life. Those masters of big forces were fine. Those big forces often had heavenly treasures or elixirs that could extend life, so they could often recover more or less. However, it was really difficult to have a long lifespan among the individual cultivators. Living for more than 5,000 years was an extravagant hope. They did not have all kinds of elixirs, so in the end, they often died prematurely. However, the Phoenix regeneration technique was much more superior than the Phoenix regeneration technique. If he had used an ordinary power technique, then he would not have been able to survive. Even if he had survived, his lifespan would have been estimated to be less than 3,000 or 4,000 years. However, with the help of the Phoenix regeneration technique, he would have lost less than 1,000 years of his lifespan in addition to the vitality that he had previously replenished. However, Yi Shiwen did not care. He was only more than 100 years old. He was still young, and he could still afford to lose. If he could achieve immortality in his lifetime, then all his vitality would be replenished, and he would be on a completely different level of life. However, he also knew very well that the greater the effect of this healing secret technique, the greater the side effects. It made him age more than 10 years in a single breath. From his face, it could be seen that he had probably lost over 1,000 years of his lifespan in a single breath. These people did not care about the consequences at all. They were a group of death warriors. This kind of death warriors was the most troublesome, and there was no way to deal with them. How could Yi Shiwen give him a chance to recover? He directly rushed up in one breath, and directly shot out countless golden lights, and attacked again. He could tell that since these were a group of death warriors, they were basically a group of desperados who would not retreat or fear death. Only by wiping out all of them would they be able to attack Yi Xing. At this time, the other dead warriors besieged Yi Shiwen, not giving him an opportunity to attack. However, how could Yi Shiwen give them an opportunity? He suddenly shouted, "Get lost!" His vigorous power pushed the experts at the 9th level of the Transcendence realm away. His surging chi and blood rushed into the sky, creating countless torrents in the corrosive river water. The Death Warrior Commander's cultivation was the most profound. In just a moment, he had already charged over again. You think you can stop me?" Yi Shiwen shouted coldly. He suddenly took a step forward, and his terrifying speed instantly transformed into a spiral of qigong and fiercely crashed into the body of that dead warrior who was healing his injuries. Bang! The death warrior was caught off guard and was torn apart on the spot by Yi Shiwen. He screamed again and was completely corroded by the river water. It could be said that he died without a burial place. Seeing the death of their companion, the faces of these death warriors did not change. It was as if they saw a passerby die. At this time, they surrounded Yi Shiwen one after another and did not have any fluctuations because of the death of their companion. "This is the guy who killed our young master. He is a great enemy of our clan. Today we must join forces to kill him," the Death Warrior Commander shouted. He knew that Yi Shiwen's strength was very tyrannical, but they outnumbered him, so he was not afraid. Moreover, they still had their last trump card, which was Yi Xing. He knew that Yi Xing and Yi Shiwen had a deep grudge. As long as Yi Xing finished absorbing the power, it would be the time of Yi Shiwen's death. Therefore, he had to stop Yi Shiwen no matter what. However, Yi Shiwen could not wait until Yi Xing finished absorbing the power. Otherwise, there would be no place for him to stand. In just a moment, Yi Xing's power had skyrocketed. It was very terrifying. "You want to kill me?" Yi Shiwen snorted coldly and once again used the great dragon-catching power. The dragon claw descended from the sky and directly grabbed and destroyed countless martial arts torrents that bombarded towards him. The power of the heaven-grade martial arts was very terrifying. However, The great dragon-catching power was a heaven-grade martial arts. With Yi Shiwen's current power, it consumed a lot of energy to activate it. The qi in his body was almost disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, the power of the great dragon-catching power was really extraordinary. Bang! A warrior at the 9th level of the Law Phase realm did not have time to react and was caught by Yi Shiwen's dragon claw on the spot. The dragon claw broke the defensive shield and directly clawed a big hole in his chest. Countless river water poured into the hole, and in a short while, it was completely corroded. However, these death warriors were still unmoved. It could even be said that they were unusually cold-blooded. They stared at Yi Shiwen and wanted him dead. They did not give him any chance to fight back. Watch me. I will also attack. At this time, Yimo finally could not bear it anymore. He directly jumped out of Yi Shiwen's body. With Tianyuan Mirror as his body, he directly turned into a demon on the spot. He shouted in the air and directly killed a death warrior at the 9th level of the Law Phase realm into a cloud of blood mist. Then he absorbed the blood. With Yimo's help, Yi Shiwen's efficiency suddenly increased a lot. He attacked again on the spot, and various martial arts flashed in his hands. He was no longer restricted to what kind of martial arts he used. He used whatever he thought of. However, his martial arts attainments were so high that no matter what kind of martial arts, he could use it easily. He was not afraid of any kind of conflict at all. Inescapable net. However, Yi Shiwen heard the leader of the dead warriors shout loudly. A big black net instantly spread open in his hand and fell down towards Yi Shiwen. For a moment, Yi Shiwen's space to dodge was blocked. It was like an inescapable net. Heaven's net has a wide net, but it never escapes. This big net seemed to have loopholes everywhere, but it gave Yi Shiwen a feeling that he simply couldn't escape. It was a set of top Earth-level divine tools, and it was boundlessly terrifying. Since I can't escape, then I won't escape. Then break for me? Yi Shiwen shouted and tore endless golden light on the spot. The big net was directly torn apart by him the moment it fell. Nothing. How are you so powerful? The leader of the Death Warriors looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. He could not believe that he, a warrior at the 6th level of the Law Phase realm, could actually tear a martial art tool with his bare hands. It should be known that having the strength to fight against a master at the 9th level of the Law Phase realm did not mean that he could tear a top Earth-level martial art tool. This was a top Earth-level martial art tool. Even some Celestial Realm masters still use this grade of martial art tool. He actually tore it with his bare hands. How tyrannical was his physical body? His eyes were full of horror. He could not believe it. Was he still human? He was simply a monster. But it was also because of this that the killing intent in his eyes became more and more terrifying. Such a person would definitely be a great threat to the Jagu clan, and a great threat. He must not be left alive. At this time, he let out a long roar and blasted out a martial art move again. It shrouded Yi Shiwen. A tyrannical force condensed on the spot and wrapped around Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen, you will definitely die today. Even if all of us die, you will die together. The leader of the Death Warriors said coldly. His heart was extremely fierce. Yi Shiwen would definitely die today. When Yi Xing finished absorbing the power, no matter how powerful Yi Shiwen was, he would still be dead. Die, of course. All of you will die today. Yi Shiwen coldly snorted. These dead warriors had formed an array formation, and all of them were rushing towards him. Even he felt a huge pressure. If it was an ordinary master at the 9th level of the Law Phase realm, he would have been suppressed to death at this time. Unfortunately, they encountered Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar and took a deep breath. Countless corrosive river water was instantly absorbed into his stomach. His entire body instantly swelled up like a ball. His face also became abnormally ugly. This was the most difficult time he had ever fired the spirit bomb. Countless corrosive river water filled his body, corroding his stomach, internal walls, and everything else. Boom! Yi Shiwen opened his mouth, and suddenly, a terrifying torrent crazily sprayed out from his mouth. The torrent of black torrent was mixed with innumerable Lingqi and Zhen Yuan, and it directly bombarded the river. Boom! Yi Shiwen's spirit bomb and their attacks collided fiercely. In an instant, it exploded fiercely, sputtering incomparably terrifying air waves that spread in all directions in circles. However, Yi Shiwen's spirit bomb did not slow down. It directly blasted their attacks and then blasted them fiercely. Boom! 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 One after another, they were blasted away. Even the leader of the Death Warriors was no exception. He was blasted and seriously injured on the spot. He was almost completely corroded by the river water. Yi Shiwen was constantly gasping for breath. These people were seriously injured by his Zhenqi bomb. Although this Zhenqi bomb, along with the corrosive river water, had consumed 1/3 of his Zhen Yuan, but the effect was still excellent. What he needed was time, and time was all he needed. Yi Shiwen, hurry up and deal with that Yi Xing, leave these guys to me, Yi Mo shouted. Yi Shiwen nodded and took a step forward to kill Yi Xing. Chapter 1278. Shua. Yi Shiwen's movements were extremely fast, and he instantly arrived in front of Yi Xing. Clang. Yi Shiwen's hand lit up with a sword light, and he ruthlessly chopped it down. The sword light violently shot out and cut open the corrosive seawater. It cleaved through the waves and was about to fall on Yi Xing's body when a terrifying aura suddenly burst out from Yi Shiwen's body. Countless Zhen Yuan gushed out from his body and instantly transformed into a big hand that grabbed towards Yi Shiwen's sword light. Boom! The big hand directly grabbed Yi Shiwen's sword light and destroyed it without the slightest pause. "Hi, Yi Shiwen, you're dead today." Yi Xing's figure instantly swept out and swept towards Yi Shiwen at a speed faster than Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's aura was more than twice as tyrannical as it was at the beginning. He had absorbed tens of thousands of years' worth of Treasure Demon's martial power. Even if it was only for a short while, his martial power had skyrocketed more than twice as much. One could well imagine how powerful his martial power was. Yi Shiwen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen did not absorb all the martial power. Otherwise, it would be terrible. He was afraid that he would have to flee in embarrassment. Yi Xing shot out his palm, and countless starlights tore through the water and pressed down towards Yi Shiwen. The aura was incomparably terrifying. Countless Zhen Yuan crazily swept out and wanted to kill Yi Shiwen in one move. Yi Xing, don't even think about it. No matter how high your cultivation is, you are no match for me. Yi Shiwen sneered and directly used the great dragon capture power. It directly turned into a real dragon and roared as it rushed towards the countless starlights. Boom! The starlight that filled the sky was instantly blasted apart, turning into stars that filled the sky. Yi Xing looked at Yi Shiwen with a slightly fearful look in his eyes. He hadn't expected that he wouldn't be able to deal with Yi Shiwen even after using his tyrannical martial power twice as much as before. If he had rashly attacked Yi Shiwen earlier, then wouldn't he have been killed on the spot? Suddenly, he was slightly startled, but at the same time, he was also somewhat glad that he had made the right decision. This Yi Shiwen was simply too tyrannical and inhuman. Even a god's son, like Yi Su Kong, was killed on the spot by him when he was a few levels lower than him. If he hadn't absorbed this power, perhaps he would have been killed on the spot. Yi Shiwen, you are too arrogant. You certainly don't know what I have obtained inside. I have already been reborn. Yi Xing roared, and his figure instantly turned into a ball of starlight. He moved as fast as lightning and instantly pounced over. Quick! 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 Yi Xing's voice had barely faded when his figure had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. A ray of starlight transformed into a long sword that directly appeared at Yi Shiwen's throat. He was about to slit his throat on the spot. A somewhat proud look flashed in his eyes. He was very confident in his speed. So what if Yi Shiwen's speed was fast? He was not the slightest bit slower. Just when that ray of starlight sword was about to cut Yi Shiwen's neck in half, he saw a schwa sound. The long sword directly cut into the depths of Yi Shiwen's neck. Yi Shiwen in front of him had turned into a ball of golden light. The starlight sword cut through it on the spot, but it did not cut anything. Not good. Yi Xing reacted in an instant. He had failed to slash Yi Shiwen on the spot, so there was no need to think about Yi Shiwen's next move. He didn't even have time to react. He turned around on the spot, and Guan's fist had already bombarded his back. If he had reacted even a little bit slower, he would have been killed on the spot. There was no chance of a fluke. Yixing repeatedly stepped on the starlight under his feet and avoided this wave of attack from Yixuan. His forehead could not help but be covered with cold sweat. All of this took a long time to describe, but from the moment Yixing launched his attack, it was actually only an instant. This is just the beginning. He had just escaped from Yixuan's attack, but he heard Yixuan's cold voice already in his ears. A ray of sword light had appeared in front of him out of nowhere. It seemed as if it had broken through the vast sky and directly rushed towards his face. It was about to cut off his head on the spot. Humph! Yixing forced himself to calm down. On his palm, there were countless treasures that swept up and instantly formed an ancient cauldron in front of him. A rusty, ancient bronze cauldron suddenly blocked in front of him. Clang! There was a crisp sound of metal colliding. The sword light stood on the ancient bronze cauldron and was unable to move. It could not move an inch. Rainstorm, flying star, slash. He shouted loudly and spread out his big hand. Then he blasted out countless starlights and smashed them down towards Yixuan. Each of these starlights was only the size of a fist. However, Yixuan could clearly see that these were clearly stars. Moreover, there were lives on them. Although he understood that these were all simulated by Yixing using the principles, he still had to pay attention to it. These starlights were as fast as lightning, covering the sky and covering the earth like a torrential rain. It was impossible to escape. At this time, a pair of wind and thunder wings instantly spread out behind Yixuan. In an instant, the power of wind and thunder turned into sharp swords in the sky, forming a sword chi storm that cut down all the starlights. Yixing's speed was very fast, but it just so happened that Yixuan's speed was even faster than he had imagined. Countless sword chi spewed out of Yixuan's body and condensed into a treasured sword. In his hand, a huge light bloomed. Its momentum was like lightning, and the sword chi was dense. He stabbed with the sword, and his body moved along with the sword. His figure was like a bullet, slashing down towards Yixing. Clang. At this time, a treasured cauldron rose from Yixing's body. Countless rays of light hung down, and the treasured sword that Yixuan stabbed could not pierce into the treasured cauldron at all. It was unexpectedly blocked. Ah, Yixuan, I said today that you're dead. Even if I haven't stepped into the half-step celestial realm, I can still beat you to death, Yixing said while laughing. The treasured cauldron formed by the treasured chi on top of his head was like a tortoise shell. Yixuan's sword chi stood on the treasured cauldron and could not enter it at all. Yixuan's sword light spread out like ripples on the surface of the ancient cauldron. With such a tortoise shell-like protection, Yixing seemed to have a protective talisman. Taking advantage of the fact that Yixuan could not enter it, he actually charged towards Yixuan to kill. Fast! 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 Yixing's speed had become even faster after his martial power had skyrocketed. Unlike Yixuan, who relied on his agility skill, Yixing relied purely on his tyrannical martial power coupled with his superior agility skill to achieve such a high speed. His figure was simply 1,000 miles in the blink of an eye, and in an instant, he once again pounced in front of Yixuan. Yixuan squinted his eyes, and countless divinities gathered in his eyes. In an instant, he opened his magic vision. Yixing's speed, which was originally invisible to him, was immediately seen clearly by him. The tempest wings behind him swept out countless power of wind and thunder. Speed. Today, I won't compete with you in speed. I won't bully you with speed. Yixuan sneered. The pair of wind and thunder wings behind him were flapping more and more fiercely. It could flap thousands of times per second. One could imagine how terrifying it was. Every time it flapped, countless wind and thunder power would gush out. I don't care how fast you are. I'll crush you all for me. The power of wind and thunder around him became denser and denser. Countless power of wind and thunder began to sweep wildly under the flapping of his tempest wings, sweeping into a huge hurricane storm. With Yixuan as the center, a huge hurricane storm was formed. Countless rivers began to rotate slowly in an instant. and then the speed became faster and faster. It was as if a huge underwater whirlpool was formed, and Yi Shiwen was the center of the whirlpool. All the rivers within 100 miles around him began to sweep wildly. These rivers, driven by his power of wind and thunder, began to rotate like a huge millstone. No matter what kind of person fell into it, they would be instantly ground into powder. This move was very difficult to deal with, or it could be said that there was no way to break it at all. It was a method of completely suppressing people with power. If one wanted to break it, only a more tyrannical power than Yi Shiwen could do it. In the millstone formed by this huge river, Yi Xing quickly revealed his figure. He had no choice but to reveal his figure, because Yi Shiwen was too terrifying. The horror in his eyes was difficult to conceal. How profound was Yi Shiwen's skill? This move was indeed very terrifying. Even if it was used by an ordinary master at the 9th level of the law manifestation realm, he would not be able to launch it halfway before his chi would be drained, and he would have to stop. However, looking at Yi Shiwen, his expression did not change at all. His heart was not beating fast, as if it was a trivial matter. There was a faint feeling of despair in his heart. Yi Shiwen simply didn't have any weakness. His speed was incomparably fast, and his body was incomparably tyrannical. Now, looking at his martial power, he was 10 times or even dozens of times stronger than an ordinary person. Was he still a human? At this moment, even the Son of God was not as monstrous as Yi Shiwen in his heart. If there was a weakness, it would be his realm. His realm was not high enough. His realm was only at the 6th level of the law manifestation realm. Sometimes, this was a fatal weakness. It was really hard to imagine how tyrannical his strength would be if he entered the 9th level of the law manifestation realm. At that time, he might really be invincible. The cauldron floating above his head let out a series of clanging noises as well. Those were the screams of pain, as the cauldron was being strangled by this terrifying whirlpool. Even this rudimentary cauldron could hardly survive. Found you! Yi Shiwen discovered Yi Xing the moment he appeared. A slight sneer flashed across the corner of his mouth, and his figure instantly rushed out. Chapter 1279. Yi Shiwen's figure instantly turned into a ball of golden light and swept across. The river water at the bottom of the river could not stop him from moving forward. Great dragon capture technique. One of his big hands turned into a dragon claw and descended from the sky. Its speed was extremely fast and powerful. It broke through the river water and was about to grab Yi Xing on the spot. All of this happened too fast. It happened in a split second. Yi Xing had no way to avoid it. Yi Shiwen's claw fell on his figure in an instant. Countless river water burst instantly. Even the space stagnated in an instant, as if it was frozen. Facing Yi Shiwen's big hand that was falling, Yi Xing shouted. All the pores on his body were spewing out a stream of star power. This star power turned into an unknown giant beast in the sky and swallowed Yi Shiwen's dragon claw into its stomach in an instant. Do you think it's so easy to swallow my stuff? Be careful not to hurt your stomach. Yi Shiwen sneered. At this time, a rapid explosion broke out in the body of the starry sky vicious beast. After a painful howl, it exploded into starlight spots on the spot and was quickly corroded by the river water. The battle at the bottom of the river was a very big burden for both of them, especially when the Jin Yuan was bombarded out. It was very easy for the Jin Yuan to corrode completely, so they had to increase the output of the Jin Yuan, which consumed a lot of energy. Yi Shiwen had the Phoenix regeneration technique to protect his body, so his recovery was very fast, but Yi Xing was not so lucky and slowly began to pant. Yi Shiwen gradually grasped the rhythm of the battle. Yi Xing was indeed getting stronger. He was more than twice as tyrannical as before. However, he was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. Yi Shiwen was like a bottomless pool. No matter how hard he tried, he seemed to be unable to force out his strength. Boom! 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 The two of them exchanged thousands of blows at the bottom of the river. Countless streams of water shot out instantly. Fortunately, there were only the two of them at the bottom of the river. There were no other creatures. As for the Jegu clan of Law Manifestation 9th level, They all died tragically on the spot under Yi Shiwen's attack. They turned into a mass of flesh and blood and were absorbed by Yi Mo compared with Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Mo did not have such a tyrannical physical body, he was actually superior to Yi Shiwen in terms of means. He was an old demon who had lived for many years. Many martial arts that were lost in the demon domain were at his fingertips. There was no problem at all. Yi Xing was gradually losing ground. However, he had the cauldron on top of his head. So whenever Yi Shiwen launched an attack, it would be blocked by the cauldron. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Shiwen casually attacked. He didn't adhere to any kind of martial arts, but he still couldn't break his defense. Yi Xing laughed heartily. His expression was a bit ferocious and deranged. He couldn't accept the fact that he was constantly losing to Yi Shiwen. This wasn't scientific. It wasn't scientific at all. This kind of thought was like a poisonous bug, breeding in his heart and gnawing at his soul. Umph. Do you really think that I can't do anything to you? Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and countless blood energies surged out of his body. In front of him, countless sword ki began to condense and blossomed into a dazzling sword light, making the entire riverbed as bright as day, immersing the entire riverbed which had never seen light before in this dazzling light. The sword light formed by the sword chi was incomparably dazzling. At this moment, this light sword split into the shape of a sword lotus. Buried heaven's sword. Yi Shiwen's winding river roared, and the sword lotus instantly shot out and fell on that treasure cauldron. Clang! A loud sound of metal colliding resounded. It seemed as if this sound had come from ancient times. Cracks started to appear on that treasure cauldron in front of the eyes of these two people. The cauldron started to crack little by little. It wasn't completely broken yet. However, it was enough for Yi Shiwen. This proved that this treasure cauldron was not unbreakable. It was just that this method would consume too much energy. However, there was no other way. There was no way to break his tortoise shell in such a short time. Even if you have a tortoise shell, it will still be vulnerable in front of me, Yi Shiwen said as he launched another attack. The sword light in his hand broke through the vast sky and slashed towards Yi Xing's body in an instant. The sword light exploded on the crack on Yi Xing's body, causing the original crack to crack even faster in all directions. Stars shine on the sun and moon, eternal existence. At this time, Yi Xing shouted, Yi Shiwen die. Yi Xing seemed to have erupted all of a sudden. His body erupted with an aura that even Yi Shiwen was incomparably fearful of. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly flickered. This is dangerous. At this time, he retreated again and again. At this time, Yi Xing opened his mouth and countless starlight gushed out of his body. Countless starlight broke through the vast sky like a stream of airflow. These starlight formed a terrifying torrent that was hundreds of meters wide. Yi Shiwen immediately judged that he couldn't take it head-on. He arranged several layers of defense in succession, but they were broken in an instant. Boom! Yi Shiwen spread out his hands and directly unfolded a golden protective wall to protect him. The torrent of starlight fiercely hit the protective wall, and suddenly there was a burst of sparks. It was extremely terrifying. He retreated all the way to remove this huge force. Finally, he retreated for hundreds of miles before he was able to remove all the force. You have exhausted your limited abilities. Go to hell. Meteor explosion. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. Countless star power condensed in his hand and turned into a huge star. Then, he took a step forward, stepped on an escape light, and chased after Yi Xing again. At this time, the lightning wings finally showed amazing instantaneous explosive power. It appeared in front of Yi Xing almost instantaneously. Boom! Yi Shiwen punched the body of the treasure cauldron fiercely. The treasure cauldron finally seemed to have no way to support itself. It suddenly collapsed on the spot. Cracks densely covered the entire treasure cauldron in an instant. In an instant, it exploded with a loud bang. The terrifying aftermath of the explosion blasted Yi Shiwen away. On the other side, Yi Xing spurted a mouthful of blood. Yi Shiwen smashed his treasure cauldron with a punch. It was equivalent to breaking the martial arts that he cultivated. At this time, even his spirit was injured by Yi Shiwen. He almost immediately decided to escape. His heart was filled with fear for Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was simply a monster. Even if his martial arts had soared by twice, he was still beaten to this state. If he had gone to find trouble with Yi Shiwen earlier, he would probably have been beaten to death by Yi Shiwen. He wouldn't even be qualified to fight Yi Shiwen. When he thought of Yi Shiwen, he thought of the divine child, Yi Shukong. His heart was filled with resentment and unwillingness. Was there really such a big gap between them? Even if he was also known as a genius, there was a world of difference between them. Want to leave? Don't even think about it. The tempest wings on Yi Shiwen's back directly flapped. His figure instantly moved horizontally in front of Yi Xing. Although Yi Xing's speed was also very fast, it was nothing in front of Yi Shiwen, who had the tempest wings. It was just that Yi Shiwen didn't want to use speed to bully him just now. Now that he wanted to escape, how could Yi Shiwen let him escape? How can he be so fast? At this time, there was only endless fear left in Yi Xing's heart. However, there was no other way at this time. Yi Shiwen had already raised his sword and attacked horizontally. Go to hell, Yi Shiwen! Yi Xing blasted out a punch. The fist energy directly churned up countless waves. Yi Xing's reaction was also very fast. In an instant, he turned around and attacked Yi Shiwen, colliding with Yi Shiwen's fist fiercely. Crack! However, he heard a crisp sound of bones breaking. Without the protection of the treasure cauldron, his fragile body immediately revealed the huge gap between him and Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen's tyrant body hadn't been cultivated to the highest level, there was actually not much difference. Even the Dragon Clan could challenge someone in the same realm, let alone Yi Xing's body. Compared to Yi Shiwen, there was no comparison at all. Yi Xing's body wasn't bad either, but it obviously depended on who he was compared to. Ah! Yi Xing let out a blood-curdling scream. His entire arm softly hung down. His eyes were incomparably horrified. Just now, with the protection of the treasure cauldron, he didn't feel that there was a big gap between them. However, this direct confrontation revealed the fundamental gap between them. Yi Shiwen's offensive had just begun. Yi Xing's remaining arm tried to block Yi Shiwen's attack, but everything seemed so ridiculous in the face of Yi Shiwen's offensive. Bang! Yi Shiwen's punch broke through all of his defenses and landed on his body. Yi Xing spouted a mouthful of blood on the spot, and his body was sent flying for dozens of miles. He wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen at all. His entire chest had also completely caved in. At this time, he didn't even have the thought of competing with Yi Shiwen. His only thought was to escape. He had never felt so desperate before. Even when he had lost to Yi Shiwen in the competition, he hadn't felt so desperate. He knew very well that Yi Shiwen wouldn't risk being punished by the higher-ups to attack him in the competition. However, it was different now. No one knew that he would die if this continued. However, this thought only lasted for a moment because he discovered that at some point in time, a lightsaber had been inserted into his chest. The injury had caused his spirit sense to degenerate. Rest in peace and go down, Yi Shiwen said in an ice-cold voice. Chapter 1280. Yi Xing had fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands, and his wealth had also fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands in one breath. However, Yi Shiwen was disappointed to find out that Yi Xing only had a few 100 million spirit crystals on his body. Yi Shiwen had searched through Yi Xing's several 100 million spirit crystals. Although Yi Xing had died too quickly, and his divine sense had dissipated too quickly, so he hadn't found many things. However, he had still found some useful things. It turned out that Yi Xing's wealth had almost been consumed in the past few years. In just 2 or 3 years, he had entered the 9th level of the Transcendence Realm from the 6th level of the Transcendence Realm. This consumption was simply unimaginable. Yi Shiwen could roughly see it from his own consumption. Even with Yi Qian mobilizing a large number of Yi Clan's resources for him, it was still not enough. The resources that he had accumulated over the years were almost consumed in one breath. This made Yi Shiwen a little disappointed. A few 100 million spirit crystals was better than nothing for him. However, Yi Shiwen seized an extremely powerful martial technique from Yi Xing's mind. It was the treasure cauldron that was used to defend against Yi Shiwen's attack just now. Its name was Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron. After condensing this treasure cauldron, one could stand on top of one's head and be invincible. This martial technique was also seen by Yi Xing in the letter of a senior many years ago. This senior was the senior who suppressed the treasure demon at the bottom of the river. No one knew who created this martial technique, but it was very impressive. It was a martial technique that matched the treasure cauldron at the bottom of the river. However, this treasure cauldron later seized the fortune of heaven and earth and cultivated into a powerful treasure demon. This Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron fell into the hands of the Yi clan senior and finally fell into the hands of Yi Xing. This time, he came to the treasure house to seize this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron. When it was combined with the Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron that he cultivated, he would truly be invincible. Unfortunately, in the end, it fell into Yi Shiwen's hands and became a wedding dress for him. Yi Shiwen did not hesitate at all. He immediately burned the hundreds of millions of spirit crystals he seized and deduced this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron. Soon, all kinds of information about the Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron were branded into the depths of his mind. This turned out to be a top heaven-level martial technique. Yi Xing had not even touched the essence of the Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron. At best, he had only touched the surface, but it was already so powerful. If he really cultivated it to the depths, he would really be invincible. Yi Shiwen's breathing was continuous. Every time he exhaled and inhaled, a large amount of corrosive river water was swallowed by him. Above his head, there was a faint shadow of a treasure cauldron. After burning hundreds of millions of spirit crystals, Yi Shiwen finally cultivated this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron to the entry stage. Although it was only the entry stage, but Yi Shiwen felt that his defense had increased a lot. This was completely different from his tyrant body. The tyrannical tyrant body was reflected in his body. There was also the treasure house's speed, strength, and so on. The strength was just one of its aspects. But this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron focused on defense for 10,000 years. In this aspect, Yi Shiwen felt that he had benefited a lot. This Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron is very powerful, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. With this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron, my strength will definitely make a leap. If I practice this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron to the Deshang level, then I absolutely won't be seriously injured by that Jin Hai Loose cultivator. This is a very suitable power technique for you. The predecessor who came up with this power technique is also very good. This Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron clearly wants to use the body as a sacrificial weapon. If I didn't have Tyrant Body Technique now, I'm afraid that this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron would be my best choice. Yi Shiwen said. Both were power techniques for body refining. Tyrant Body Technique was obviously a level higher than Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron. Tyrant Body Technique was more balanced, while Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron was more focused on defense. When the time comes, he would be able to cultivate a kind of treasure similar to a magic weapon. At that time, with Tyrant Body Technique as the foundation and Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron as the surface, Yi Shiwen's defensive power would immediately be able to go up a level. When he encountered Jin Hai Loose Cultivator again, although he wouldn't be able to do anything to him, Jin Hai Loose Cultivator wouldn't be able to do anything to him either. Yi Shiwen, the most important thing now is to quickly seize this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron. This Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron is also the core foundation of this power technique. If you can subdue this Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron, then the Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron will immediately be able to achieve small success. Yi Mo's eyes were sharp. At a glance, he could see that the Eight Treasures Universe Cauldron was the core of this power technique. Yi Shiwen nodded. The hundreds of millions of spirit crystals that he had seized from Yi Xing were almost used up. When the time comes, you will absorb this treasure demon's power for tens of thousands of years. In one go, you will be able to step into the 7th level of Law Phase Realm Peak. At that time, that Jin Hai Loose Cultivator will be at your mercy, Yi Mo said indifferently. Then I hope that Jinhai Lu's cultivator doesn't escape. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. Both of his eyes revealed a fierce look. Originally, he had hoped that Jinhai Lu's cultivator would leave before he could leave. But now, he hoped that Jinhai Lu's cultivator wouldn't leave. He wanted to wait for him to personally take revenge. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate. He went straight to the depths of the river. Through the hand technique that he had found in Yi Xing's mind, Yi Shiwen smoothly opened the array formation and went straight downstream. He saw that at the bottom of the river, there was a treasure cauldron the size of a small mountain standing upright. The body of the cauldron exuded a faint light. The light illuminated the nearby darkness of the river. The river water was unable to corrode this treasure cauldron. Yi Shiwen's face was filled with joy. He looked at the body of this 8 treasures universe cauldron. There was no trace of aura. It seemed that the treasure demon was already dead. He swam over directly. Just when he was about to use Tianyuan mirror to directly brush the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron into the picture, he heard a loud explosion. The 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron suddenly shone brightly. Then, a big hand rushed towards Yi Shiwen to grab him. That big hand was suffused with innumerable treasures and possessed unimaginable terrifying power. Not good, damn. This treasure demon is actually pretending to be dead. Yi Shiwen suddenly cursed in his heart. This treasure demon was extremely cunning. From the beginning until now, it hadn't made the slightest movement, which made Yi Shiwen think that it was already dead. However, when Yi Shiwen approached it, it suddenly attacked. If Yi Shiwen hadn't been vigilant from the beginning to the end, then he would have already been caught and killed on the spot. This treasure demon was much more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Sure enough, it was a heaven-level treasure demon. It had almost forced Yi Shiwen into a dead end. Yi Shiwen fiercely tiptoed in the water, and his figure directly turned into a streamer of light. He avoided the big hand and continued to chase after him. Only when Yi Shiwen was out of the range of the Zhun method did the big hand stop. Damned human! Damned human! At this time, bursts of roars came from the bottom of the river. Yi Shiwen saw that the 8 treasures universe cauldron had finally transformed into the appearance of a skinny old man. At this time, he really looked like a candle in the wind, as if a torrent of water could completely sweep him away. You're still not dead? Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes as he stood outside the formation. He was quite surprised. Because of the effect of the formation, he wasn't worried that this treasure demon would be able to cross the formation and attack him. If he could hear it, then this treasure demon would have already escaped from the formation a long time ago. At this time, the old man's complexion seemed abnormally gloomy. He actually failed and let this unknown brat escape. Didn't he pretend to be a dead man just for this day? He wanted to have this opportunity to launch a surprise attack. Originally, he wanted to ambush Yi Xing. He wanted to capture Yi Xing in a flash by ambushing him. Then, no one would be able to keep him in check if he wanted to escape or wreak havoc. However, who knew that the plan would change? Yi Xing died in Yi Shiwen's hands in the end. However, he didn't change the slightest bit throughout the entire process. He acted as if he was already dead. In the end, he decided to launch a surprise attack on Yi Shiwen. Perhaps, Yi Shiwen was his last hope to leave this place. He didn't have the time to continue waiting for tens of thousands of years. These tens of thousands of years had already squeezed him dry. How could this old man die? If it wasn't for that damned human, how could this old man be imprisoned in this dark place? The treasure demon of the 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron sneered and said, "Brat, I can see that you have great ambitions. How about it? Let's cooperate. I know that you snatched that person's 8 treasures heaven and earth cauldron. This is a heaven-level martial art. With your current cultivation and martial arts realm, you shouldn't be able to understand it. However, if I can guide you, then everything will be different. With my guidance, you will soon be able to enter the small accomplishment realm. However, the premise is that you must take me away from this dark place." Yi Shiwen saw a flash of fierceness in the eyes of the cauldron demon and immediately understood that this treasure demon's words were simply to deceive him. It was simply impossible for him to do so. As long as he dared to enter the formation again, this cauldron demon would absolutely dare to attack him again. Then, he would seize his memory and the hand seal to leave the formation and leave. At that time, he would be free and unfettered in this vast world. Although this cauldron demon had gone through tens of thousands of years and his cultivation had degenerated to merely the initial stage of the half-step celestial being realm, but it was still much more tyrannical than him. Yi Shiwen would not take this risk. Chapter 1281. With his current cultivation, it was not enough to truly contend with a half-step celestial realm master. Only when he stepped into the 7th level of the Transcendence realm would he truly be able to contend with a half-step celestial realm master. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "Old monster, do you think I don't know what you're planning? As long as I go in, I will definitely be plotted against by you. Don't even think about tempting me. I've seen many scheming old monsters. If you want to plot against me, you're still a bit lacking compared to those old foxes in the outside world." Although this treasure cauldron monster had lived for tens of thousands of years and had tyrannical cultivation, in terms of scheming, he could not even compare to Yi Shiwen, let alone those old guys who lived all day scheming. Don't you want to quickly cultivate the 8 treasure universe cauldrons? At this time, the treasure cauldron monster was still unwilling to give up and wanted to tempt Yi Shiwen. Haha, what's so difficult about cultivating the 8 treasure universe cauldron? As long as I subdue you, then I can immediately achieve small success. Do you think I don't know anything? Yi Shiwen laughed and said with a bit of mockery. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Seeing that Yi Shiwen had seen through him, the treasure cauldron monster suddenly became irritated and extremely depressed. He did not expect that he could not deceive Yi Shiwen. It was too early to make a move just now. He should have waited for Yi Shiwen to approach before making a move. In that case, he definitely could not escape. Damn human warrior, I will definitely not let you go. Ha, you won't let me go? I won't let you go. Yi Shiwen laughed and looked a bit relaxed. But I still have to thank you. If it wasn't for the inheritance you left behind, it would have been impossible for me to have a breakthrough in such a short time. Yi Shiwen's words immediately made the treasure cauldron monster think of something. You want to absorb that power? No, despicable. The treasure cauldron monster almost immediately realized that Yi Shiwen wanted to absorb that power. If the current Yi Shiwen was not a threat to him, then everything would change once Yi Shiwen absorbed that portion of power. Yi Xing had only absorbed a little bit of power, and his power had already doubled. If Yi Shiwen were to absorb this power, then how terrifying would it be? Just thinking about it made his complexion change greatly. If Yi Shiwen were to absorb this power, then he would really be on a dead end. Despicable. No matter how despicable I am, can I compare to you? Just a moment ago, I was almost plotted against by you, but you can actually talk about cooperation with me without batting an eyelid. You are really shameless, ah. Yi Shiwen sneered and said. Then, he no longer paid attention to the treasured cauldron monster's nagging. He sat cross-legged in the air outside the matrix, floating in the water. While pinching his hands, he suddenly felt the matrix suddenly rumble and move. Then, the matrix blossomed with countless rays of light. Then, a torrent of treasure energy turned into pure energy and instantly poured into Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt that his power, which he originally thought could not increase, actually began to increase bit by bit. He realized that he actually had so much room for improvement. Yi Shiwen opened his mouth wide, and countless torrents of energy were absorbed by him. His lower abdomen clearly arched up, and then flattened down again, and then arched up again, and flattened down again. His body was like an endless water tank. No matter how much torrents of energy there were, it could be absorbed by his body. Shameless, shameless human. Seeing Yi Shiwen absorb his power in large gulps, the treasure cauldron monster suddenly shouted in exasperation. Every cell in his body was filled with this energy. His cultivation rose bit by bit, and his face also appeared flushed red. That was the result of countless capillaries exploding on the spot. This treasure cauldron monster, although it was only at the initial stage of half-step heaven realm, but that was the result after tens of thousands of years of weakening. Originally, he was a genuine heaven realm master. His martial power had been absorbed. Even if it had been purified and refined, it was still enormous. Yi Shiwen soon discovered that even if his body were to explode, there was no way for him to completely absorb this energy. In fact, his body might really explode on the spot if this continued. When the treasure cauldron monster saw Yi Shiwen's appearance, he immediately understood what was going on. After all, he was once a heaven realm master. Although his power had regressed, his eyesight was still there. He immediately shouted in schadenfreude, "Human see? This is retribution. You still want to absorb my power. This is retribution, retribution. Yi Shiwen, you can't absorb like this, or else you might explode." Yi Mo also discovered Yi Shiwen's abnormal state at the first moment. Yi Shiwen understood, but this treasure cauldron monster's power was really too vigorous. It was vigorous to a degree that he had not imagined. Now he could not stop. The arrow on the bowstring had to be fired. Ah! Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and the qi and blood on his body surged up and swept out. At this time, he made a bold decision. He wanted to break through on the spot. As he frantically absorbed this power, he began to circulate the observing person scripture and began to break through to the 7th level of the transcendence realm. Yi Shiwen, even if you break through to the 7th level of the transcendence realm, it is useless. Even if you break through to the 7th level of the transcendence realm, it is impossible to completely digest this power. Yi Mo roared. "I know, but I have to break through anyway. Let's do it now." Yi Shiwen replied, and then the power in his body began to split into 2 waves. One wave was absorbed by the observing person scripture and began to crazily break through to the 7th level of the transcendence realm. The other wave began to compress towards the middle dantian of Yi Shiwen's chest. Slowly, it was compressed into a small ball. Just like when the energy of the desolate blood fruit could not be completely absorbed, it was converted into an energy ball for him to slowly absorb. It was just that at that time, the desolate blood fruit was naturally formed, and the medicinal power was far from as overbearing as this treasure cauldron monster's power. Now, Yi Shiwen wanted to artificially form an energy ball. Even if he could not absorb it now, it did not mean that he could not in the future. He could completely leave it for slowly absorbing in the future. With this power as a foundation, Yi Shiwen's cultivation would definitely be like adding wings to a tiger. It would not be long before he could step into the 9th level of the transcendence realm in one fell swoop. What was a fortuitous encounter? This was a fortuitous encounter. Yi Mo watched for a while and finally understood Yi Shiwen's plan. He felt that Yi Shiwen was indeed a bit crazy. An average person wouldn't do this because it was very likely that they would suffer from qi deviation. Multitasking in a situation where either side of the body could explode on the spot. Only Yi Shiwen, who had the mysterious space, could do this. In the human body, there was a saying that there were 3 dantians. The upper dantian was in the brain, which was also the sea of consciousness. The middle dantian was in the chest, and the lower dantian was the dantian that everyone thought was in the lower abdomen. Ordinary people could only use the lower dantian, and even Yi Shiwen rarely used the middle dantian. However, at this time, the middle dantian, which was usually not polished, had to pour in so much energy at once. The difficulty and pain could be imagined. An extremely painful expression appeared on Yi Shiwen's face. However, it was extremely strange that the more painful he was, the calmer he felt. The enlightening mind ancient tree was playing its role in his upper dantian. It was emitting 7-colored divine light, and it had enveloped his entire body. Therefore, he was maintaining absolute calmness and tranquility even though he was in extreme pain. At the same time, his lower dantian was constantly operating the observing person scripture. It had already turned into a universe. At this time, under the command of the observing person scripture, countless martial power was absorbed and then transformed into combat power. He rushed to the 7th level of the transcendence realm. Under such circumstances, his upper, middle, and lower dantians were operating crazily. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long been unable to bear it and exploded on the spot. Only Yi Shiwen could barely control the balance by relying on the Mingxin ancient tree and the mysterious space. However, even so, this was still a very dangerous thing. Therefore, Yemo felt that Yi Shiwen was crazy. Otherwise, why would he do such a dangerous thing? But Yi Shiwen didn't have any other choice. The arrow was already knocked on the bowstring and had no choice but to release it. The martial power was like a torrent rushing into his body, and he couldn't ignore it. Otherwise, the meridians in his body would be instantly destroyed. Now that things had come to this, he could only go crazy. At this time, the precious cauldron demon saw that Yi Shiwen's martial power was constantly rising. Although there was an abnormal expression of pain on his face, he did not have the slightest intention of going crazy because of the abnormality of the three dantians. He suddenly became abnormally depressed. Originally, he thought that Yi Shiwen would explode and die. If Yi Shiwen really exploded and died, it would also be a good thing for him. Although he would also lose the opportunity to go out because of this, it was still better than dying in the hands of Yi Shiwen and having his spiritual wisdom erased. But now, he was extremely depressed. He watched Yi Shiwen's martial power continue to rise and finally slowly stopped. However, he was not happy. Instead, he became even more nervous because he was very clear that this was not Yi Shiwen's body exploding, but it represented that Yi Shiwen's martial power had climbed to the peak, and he was about to break through. Sure enough, after Yi Shiwen's martial power stopped rising, his face revealed a relaxed expression. Time passed minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, Yi Shiwen had been sitting cross-legged like this for more than a month. He was motionless like a sculpture. He was motionless despite the countless corrosive torrents of the surrounding rivers sweeping over him. After an unknown period of time, a tyrannical aura suddenly erupted from Yi Shiwen's body. It swept out countless waterspouts and directly rushed out of the river. Chapter 1282. Yi Shiwen's aura finally rose crazily after a month of not moving at all. The treasured cauldron monster could almost see Yi Shiwen's surging aura with the naked eye. After breaking through the barrier of the 7th level of Transcendence Realm, Yi Shiwen's power was finally no longer restricted, and he also crazily absorbed the treasured cauldron monster's power. His cultivation did not stagnate at all. It rose level by level, terrifying to the extreme. Although he had broken through to the 7th level of Transcendence Realm, Yi Shiwen still did not move. Like this, after a full 10 days, Yi Shiwen finally stopped. He had climbed to the peak of the 7th level of Transcendence Realm, and in the formation, the sealed treasured cauldron monster's power was completely absorbed into his body. Although he had not absorbed even 1/10 of the power, this was already a very good start. As his cultivation increased rapidly, this power would be completely absorbed sooner or later. However, he still sighed with emotion. One must know that it was very difficult for him to advance. It could even be said that it was 100 times, or even a few hundred times more difficult for an ordinary person. However, after absorbing this power, his cultivation advanced so quickly that even he himself did not expect it to be so fast. After all, this treasured cauldron monster was once a celestial realm treasured demon, and its power could be said to be omnipotent. It was definitely not fake. Now that his martial power had regressed to such a degree, all of this martial power had been sealed in the Jin method, and now all of it had been absorbed by Yi Shiwen into his middle dantian and was constantly being suppressed by the mysterious space. Otherwise, this martial power might have exploded inside his body on the spot. He moved a little, and his whole body made a crackling sound like firecrackers. After not moving for so long, his whole body felt like it was about to rust. Golden light burst out of his eyes. Compared to before, it was not the same at all. It should be known that before, Yi Shiwen could only move unhindered in the 9th level of Transcendence Realm, but now he had crossed another level. One could imagine how much progress he had made. Yi Shiwen looked at the treasure demon. Just a moment ago, he had been forced to flee in panic under the attack of this treasure demon, but now it was different. His skill had undergone an earth-shaking transformation. He directly removed the formation instead of opening it. Although his figure wasn't tall, he was as imposing as a mountain. He landed at the bottom of the river and calmly looked at the treasured cauldron demon. The precious cauldron demon beast didn't feel happy when he saw that Yi Shiwen had removed the array formation. That was because he knew that Yi Shiwen had the confidence to remove the array formation. However, a sneer flashed across the corner of his mouth. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was still too arrogant. Since you dare to remove this formation, it means you are very confident in yourself. The treasured cauldron demon sneered and said, "Of course, do you think I'm still the same as before? This is all thanks to your gift. Otherwise, how could my cultivation break through from the 6th level of the Transcendence Realm to the 7th level of the Transcendence Realm in one fell swoop?" Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back, exuding a powerful aura from head to toe. From the 6th level of the Transcendence Realm to the 7th level of the Transcendence Realm, although there wasn't a huge change in the nature of life, for him, it was a leap to another peak in one fell swoop. The corrosive river water that would have made him extremely miserable previously was no longer that much of a concern to him now. He even had the thought of taking this river water away. "Yemo, take a portion of this river water with you later. I want to use this river water to temper my body. Although it may not be able to truly complete the 10th level of the Tyrant Body Scripture, over time, the effects will accumulate in the future. Sooner or later, it will be useful." Yi Shiwen said to Yi Mo. He actually wanted to use this river water to temper his body. One had to know that Yi Shiwen's current body was already very tyrannical. It could even be said that if it wasn't an intense battle, it would be very difficult to really hurt his body. Unless it was a battle like the one between him and Jinhai Lu's cultivator before, then it would be possible to hurt him. Like the battle with Yi Xing, it was impossible to hurt him at all. The tyrannical strength of his Tyrant Body Scripture was definitely not a joke. In other words, it was already very difficult to really temper his body under ordinary circumstances. Knives and axes would not have any effect at all unless he used Heaven's Retribution to temper his body. However, Heaven's Retribution was not cabbage on the roadside. It was always there. This corrosive river water was a very good choice. If he soaked in it day and night without using divinity to resist, it would probably be very beneficial to the tempering of his body. There was also the space storm. They were both good ways to temper his body. It was just that he couldn't take the space storm away. That's not a bad idea. However, the best way is to head to the demon domain. Compared to the ancient Baron's continent, although the demon domain has demonic aura and various creatures that are born from the demonic aura, it's truly barren compared to the ancient Baron's continent. The living environment is extremely harsh, and the demonic aura is many times more violent than spiritual energy. Said Yemo, not to mention, if you go to some famous dangerous places in the demon domain, such as the Deathlands, you can only really temper your tyrant body in these places. Yemo had always been tempting him to go to the demon domain. In the early days, he wanted to cultivate Yi Shiwen into a human demon so that he could one day rule the demon domain and become the monarch of the demon domain. However, it was different now. After so many years of getting along with Yi Shiwen, he knew Yi Shiwen's temper very well. Although Yi Shiwen could be regarded as decisive and not a good person, he was definitely not a bad person. Moreover, it was impossible for him to betray his own race and join the demon domain. However, he still wanted Yi Shiwen to go to the demon domain because the demon domain could not only temper Yi Shiwen's cultivation, but more importantly, according to Yemo, his former master, the great demon king, left a lot of wealth in some places in the demon domain. If Yi Shiwen could seize the wealth, then he wouldn't have to worry about cultivation in the future. After all, these were the treasures left by the demon king. Even in the entire demon domain, there were still countless demons coveting the treasures left by the former demon king. If Yi Shiwen didn't go, it would be convenient for those demons. If they really found it, then Yi Shiwen wouldn't have anything to do with it. Well, after this matter is over, I can go to the demon domain. Yi Shiwen nodded. Of course, all of this was communicated through divine sense, so the precious cauldron demon king didn't know. However, when he heard Yi Shiwen's words, his complexion suddenly turned ugly. After all, Yi Shiwen had absorbed his power to break through in one fell swoop. Moreover, his power had been purified for so many years, so he wasn't afraid that it would cause his power to become impure because of the complexity. At this time, Precious Cauldron Demon King sneered at Yi Shiwen and said, "What is there for you to be proud of? Although you have absorbed this old man's power, and your power has skyrocketed. But what use is that? After this old man kills you, this old man will swallow you. In that case, this old man will not only be able to replenish my lost power, but most importantly, this old man will be able to swallow your power alive. At that time, stepping into the celestial being realm will only be a matter of time. Originally, even if I killed you, this old man had no way to break through this matrix, but thanks to you, this old man was able to escape from it. Jie, since you let this old man go, this old man will now give you a chance to say your last words." Last words? Haha, in the end, who needs last words? Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back, with the demeanor of a great master. He simply didn't take Precious Cauldron Demon King's threat to heart. Boy, don't think that you can be presumptuous in front of this old man just because you have learned martial arts for 2 days. This old man was once a celestial being expert and is different from any half-step law phase expert you have seen. In the same realm, this old man slaughters them like slaughtering chickens and dogs. They are not my opponent at all. Precious Cauldron Demon King said coldly as he looked at Yi Shiwen. Coincidentally, I am also the same. Then, why don't we have a real fight? Yi Shiwen was not frightened by Precious Cauldron Demon King's words. In his eyes, this Precious Cauldron Demon King was already a dead man, and he actually dared to say that he would swallow him alive. This was even more vicious than those who refined human medicine. At this time, Precious Cauldron Demon King coldly snorted. He took a step forward and actually directly tore open the space, instantly pouncing in front of Yi Shiwen. That was not because the speed was too fast. Rather, it was because he had truly torn through the void to get there, utilizing part of the laws of space. Thus, there was almost no time gap. Ordinary experts half a step into the heaven tier would not be able to do that. Only true experts in the heaven tier would be able to do that. Precious Cauldron Demon King's face revealed a somewhat ferocious expression. This boy actually dared to look down on him. Now, he wanted him to understand that although they were both half-step celestial being initial stage, what was the difference between him and those common people? He was an expert who had once rushed into the celestial being realm in one fell swoop. His skills had regressed, but all kinds of realms and martial arts were still there. Even if he was given enough time, he would once again step into the celestial being realm without any obstacles. This was his most tyrannical aspect. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist and instantly turned into a huge, ancient bronze cauldron, smashing down towards Yi Shiwen from the air. This was also the path of using force to suppress people, and Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with a bit of astonishment. Obviously, he did not expect this Precious Cauldron Demon King's speed to be so fast, but he still reacted in the first moment and directly spread out his hands, instantly arranging a golden protective wall in front of him. Dang! A loud buzzing sound rang out, and the golden protective wall actually cracked from the ancient bronze cauldron's attack. Chapter 1283. Yi Shiwen suddenly felt his arm go slightly numb, and was immediately a bit shocked. With his current tyrant body, unless the opponent's realm was much higher than his, they would not be able to pose any threat to him. Although this Precious Cauldron Demon was more tyrannical than Golden Sea Loose Practitioner, his strength was no longer the same as before. If he met Golden Sea Loose Practitioner now, he could easily injure him. But this Precious Cauldron Demon was much more tyrannical than Golden Sea Loose Practitioner. It was clear as soon as they exchanged blows. Compared to Precious Cauldron Demon, Golden Sea Loose Practitioner was simply a common trash, a small fry. He now somewhat understood what Precious Cauldron Demon's true trump card was. A Heaven Realm expert, even if it was a former Heaven Realm expert, still had the unimaginable power of a half-step Heaven Realm expert. A weakened version of a true expert of the Heaven tier. Yi Shiwen immediately became excited. With his current strength, he was absolutely unable to contend against a true Heaven Realm expert, but now he had the opportunity to exchange blows with a Heaven Realm expert. How could he not be excited? If it was a normal Heaven Realm expert, one punch would be enough to seriously injure him. and another punch would be enough to completely end him. But this precious cauldron demon was different. He had the martial arts experience and realm of a heaven realm expert, but his strength was not so tyrannical. He was simply the best opponent. Precious Cauldron Demon did not know that in Yi Shiwen's heart, he had already become the best sparring partner, but it did not hinder his desire to kill Yi Shiwen. He simply wanted to look up to the sky and roar. After so many years, he finally had the chance to go out. And this was all brought by Yi Shiwen in front of him. If he did not properly entertain him, he would simply be letting down so many years of pain. He attacked once again. He blasted a punch, and it once again transformed into an ancient bronze cauldron. Boom! An earth-shattering fist energy mightily blasted a distance of dozens of miles. It traversed the vast sky and instantly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. His physical body itself was a top-notch heaven realm magic tool, incomparably tyrannical. Any magic tool was fleeting to him. He himself was the greatest magic tool. Although Yi Shiwen's expression was solemn, his movements were not hurried. His toes tapped continuously, and the chi on his body instantly boiled, shaking all directions like a cold god of war. Yi Shiwen did not have any magic tools. His 5 fingers formed a fist, which exuded a heart-palpitating aura. This precious cauldron demon's strength was too tyrannical. Ordinary early-stage masters of half-step heaven realm would not be able to block his fist and would be seriously injured. Another fist and they would be killed. In the face of the precious cauldron demon beast's attack, all the divinities on Yi Shiwen's body instantly condensed into a pillar of energy, which broke through the obstruction of the river. It seemed as if it would pierce through the vast sky. It surged violently and dispersed in all directions, cooling the entire riverbed. It seemed as if a golden ocean had appeared here. It seemed as if he had arrived in a golden kingdom. The cauldron demon beast's attack came closer and closer. That ancient cauldron emitted a brilliant blue light, causing the entire void to collapse. Although it was immediately repaired by the spatial laws, one could still see how terrifying the cauldron demon beast's attack was. The fist energy blasted out a cyan ocean and swept towards Yi Shiwen in an overwhelming manner. Yi Shiwen didn't show any weakness. Countless golden divine waves instantly condensed under his feet, directly condensing into magic swords, and then slashed towards the treasured cauldron demon beast. Boom! The cyan chi high and Yi Shiwen's torrent of sword ki collided in the air and the river. The terrifying power directly set off crazy waves on the surface of the river. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already passed through the boundless river and arrived in front of each other. Brat die! Treasured cauldron demon beast laughed maliciously and roared. He wanted to put all the shame and suffering that the Yi clan seniors had given him on Yi Shiwen. At that moment, the aura on his body was completely unleashed. The aura of a former celestial realm expert was vividly displayed. His fist energy cut through the vast sky like a mountain and swept towards Yi Shiwen's front. At this time, Yi Shiwen's body also exuded a terrifying light. A magic sword formed in his hand, and he slashed down from the sky. Boom! The fist energy and the sword intent fiercely collided in the void, and the void instantly collapsed. Countless streams of river also instantly poured into that spatial crack, and even the chaos was hunted out. Both sides slightly retreated a step, somewhat dumbfounded as they looked at each other. Both sides were somewhat shocked by the tyrannical strength of the other's body. They didn't think that it would be such a scene, especially that treasure cauldron demon beast. He was very clear that his body could be said to be a top celestial realm magic tool. Even if his cultivation had regressed, the strength of his body hadn't changed in the slightest. At this moment, he actually had no way to gain the upper hand. However, neither of them had the so-called idea of appreciating each other. On the contrary, there was only an even more violent killing intent splashing in their eyes. Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast wanted to vent his dissatisfaction for so many years, and Yi Shiwen even used Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast as a whetstone to temper himself. Through this Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast, he would study the tyrannical strength of celestial realm experts. Brat! Just what kind of cultivation technique are you practicing? This body isn't the slightest bit lacking. Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast seemed to have the bag of victory, so even at this time, he still looked very relaxed. At least stronger than you. Yi Shiwen sneered, and the long sword in his hand attacked again. Like a golden dragon, it set off an incomparably terrifying tyrannical aura. In an instant, it split the waves, sweeping towards Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast. Stronger than me? How, what a joke! Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast sneered. Cauldron shakes the world. He blasted out a fist, and on the spot, a monstrous giant cauldron appeared. It pressed down towards Yi Shiwen like a mountain, as if it really wanted to suppress all evil in the world. Boom! The sword chi and the cauldron collided on the spot, and boundless power spread out in an instant. The fight between experts half a step into the celestial realm directly caused the entire river to boil madly, as if two monsters were fighting in it. At their level, no matter what kind of physique, it was impossible to restrict them. Die! Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast directly lifted the giant cauldron, and once again smashed it down. Any exquisite moves in front of him were all fleeting clouds. As long as he smashed down, it would be up to you to take it or not. If you didn't take it, you would be smashed to death. If you took it, he would easily lead the rhythm of your moves, and finally, you would be killed by him. The Great Way was the simplest, and this was the truth. At the end of martial arts cultivation, it was a competition between martial arts understanding. And Yi Shiwen seemed to be completely suppressed, constantly defending, a long sword protecting his whole body so that not even a drop of water could penetrate, extremely fast. Boom! 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 The battle between the two was too intense, killing all the way out of the river. Suddenly, there was a bright light in front of them, and in an instant, they had already returned to the treasure house. Out of the river, both sides were even more unscrupulous, because there was no corrosive river water, so both sides fought even more unscrupulously and did not need to hold back to resist the corrosion of the river water. When Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast fought, he was like an old madman, striding out, shattering the vacuum. His whole body rushed out like a cannonball, like a mountain falling from the sky. Yi Shiwen's big hand instantly shot out. Great Dragon Capture Power! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and instantly launched the Great Dragon Capture Power, transforming into a huge dragon claw and grabbed towards Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast. The strength of both of them was absolutely enough to pull up a mountain, and a casual strike could strike down a star. Both of them were tyrannical experts who were renowned for their physical bodies. It could even be said that if an ordinary person were to encounter them, only death awaited them. Because their physical bodies were too tyrannical, it was difficult for an ordinary person to even injure them. Yi Shiwen also felt that his arm was a little numb. The strength of this Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast was not tyrannical, but its strength had definitely reached a terrifying level, like carrying a tortoise shell on his back, and simply couldn't break it. Yi Shiwen, his body is a top-level heaven stage ancient cauldron. With your current power, it is impossible to destroy him. Yimo analyzed. Indeed, Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen, because his body was indeed tyrannical, but his explosive power was far worse than Yi Shiwen's, so it was simply impossible for him to injure Yi Shiwen. Relying on the fact that his realm was far higher than Yi Shiwen's, he was only on par with Yi Shiwen, nothing more. But at the same time, Yi Shiwen also couldn't do anything to this Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast. Although his explosive power was strong enough, it was obviously not enough to seriously injure this Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast. If this fight continued, the fight between both sides would inevitably evolve into a protracted war, and the consequences would absolutely be unimaginable. He didn't come to this treasure house to engage in a protracted war with this Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast. So if you want to defeat him, the key is to destroy his soul, and destroy his soul, he can only be a divine tool. Nothing more. Yimo said. Just like Yimo, Tianyuan Mirror was a dreadful devil. But without Yimo, Tianyuan Mirror was just a magic tool. Nothing more, there was no difference between it and Yimo Humph. I'll let you see what is called the means of a celestial realm expert. Treasured Cauldron Demon Beast sneered, took a step forward, and immediately shattered the void. An overbearing and tyrannical aura of supremacy swept out, and an endless ancient aura swept out, as if hiding the sky and covering the earth. Yi Shiwen spread out his hand, and a magic sword slowly condensed on top of it. Then countless flames directly covered the magic sword, and the magic sword crazily rotated on his palm. A huge, buzzing sound penetrated the sky and even attracted the attention of many experts in the distance. Such a great battle. If it could be said that there was a cover of water at the bottom of the river, then now it directly appeared in the sky. I'll send you on your way with one sword. Yi Shiwen's whistling sound penetrated the sky and shook in all directions. Shwa! Yi Shiwen's figure seemed to disappear and appeared in front of Treasure Cauldron Demon Beast, accompanied by countless sounds of wind and thunder. Chapter 1284. Fast, fast, fast. Yi Shiwen's speed could only be described as fast. In an instant, he had already appeared in front of him. In the eyes of Precious Cauldron Demon, this speed was almost the same as his own teleportation speed. But he could not teleport all the time. His teleportation needed to tear the void, and for him, who was no longer a celestial being expert, tearing the void was absolutely a very difficult thing. Every time he did it, he had to use all his strength. Therefore, teleportation could not be used at any time and place, and it consumed a lot of energy. Compared to Yi Shiwen's speed, there was a huge gap. Yi Shiwen's lightning wings were launched, and in a short range, his speed was not inferior to the speed of teleportation. This was also the fundamental reason why Yi Shiwen could fight against Emperor Chun, who could teleport. Of course, if the distance was too long, then the difference would quickly become apparent. The lightning wings could only allow him to move within a short distance, but teleportation could allow him to teleport no matter how far he was. As long as he could support it, there would be no problem at all. For a celestial being expert, teleportation in a short distance was not a problem at all. It was nothing more than consuming a little more martial power. Precious Cauldron Demon was secretly shocked. At this time, he did not dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen anymore. From the previous exchange, he could see that Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength was far superior to the average half-step celestial being expert. The long sword in Yi Shiwen's hand that was burning with a strange flame cut through the sky, instantly turning the sky into a sea of fire. This kind of flame made Precious Cauldron Demon secretly feel a sense of fear. After all, Treasure Demon transformed from a magic treasure, like him, was not afraid of lightning, not afraid of weak water, but afraid of fire. Because no matter what kind of magic treasure, they were all forged from fire. For them, this was a natural nemesis. Moreover, this kind of flame gave him a sense of extreme danger. He did not know where this feeling of danger came from. It might be a kind of intuition as a former celestial being expert, but he trusted this intuition very much. He immediately retreated, but at the same time, he constantly blasted out with his fists, interfering with Yi Shiwen's forward steps. But facing Yi Shiwen's full speed, he did not have any advantage, because even if he could teleport, he was at most not at a disadvantage in terms of movement speed. But with the lightning wings, Yi Shiwen's speed was reflected in his overall speed. Whether it was the speed of attack or the speed of reaction, it was far beyond Precious Cauldron Demon's imagination. Treasure Cauldron Demon Beast constantly retreated. The fist energy wrapped around his entire body. Although each fist could block Yi Shiwen's attack, relying on the martial arts experience and realm of the Heaven Tier, he was temporarily in an invincible position, but Yi Shiwen's offensive was simply like a maggot in the tarsal bone, constantly advancing. She didn't give him any chance to leave at all. She entangled him tightly. At that moment, even he, who had once been an expert in the Heaven Tier, felt extremely depressed. He was completely unable to take the initiative in the battle. It was as if his physical body had become something useless in this place. The main reason was that the flame on Yi Shiwen's sword was too strange. It had burnt a hole in the sky, and countless treasured energies had been burnt through. It was unknown what kind of strange flame it was. At this time, even he, a former celestial being expert, was extremely depressed. He could not grasp the initiative of the battle, and his body seemed to have become something useless here. Damn it. What is this strange heavenly flame? Looks like I can only fight to the death. At this time, Precious Cauldron Demon had been forced into a corner by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's body was not bad, so he could not gain the slightest advantage. At most, he was in an invincible position, but this kind of flame made him very afraid. Suddenly, the Precious Cauldron Demon, who had been forced to retreat by Yi Shiwen, suddenly bloomed with a brilliant light, and countless treasured auras instantly spewed out from his body. The world shook, and the colors changed in all directions. His whole body turned into a huge cauldron the size of a small mountain. This was directly revealing his true body. He had actually been forced to reveal his true body by Yi Shiwen. This could not be helped. It should be known that after these demon race changed into their true body, their battle strength would be even more tyrannical. Generally, unless it was a critical moment, it would rarely be like this. That huge cauldron the size of a small mountain directly pressed down with the momentum of Mount Tai. That majestic aura was enough to make people tremble. Facing this desperate attack, Precious Cauldron Demon, who wanted to kill Yi Shiwen was not surprised, but happy. He directly went up to meet it, and the sword in his hand directly turned into a sword lotus. Boom! That sword lotus and the 8 treasures universe cauldron collided in the air, and a terrifying collision sound resounded. Countless rays of light instantly covered the sky, making people's eyes unable to see the situation inside. Suddenly, that brilliance dissipated, but the Precious Cauldron Demon's miserable screams were heard. The 8 treasures universe cauldron's true body was really tyrannical. Yi Shiwen's sword lotus was smashed into pieces on the spot, but the endless flames did not dissipate. Instead, like maggots in a tarsal bone, they directly attached to the 8 treasures universe cauldron and began to burn. Although these strange flames that Yi Shiwen had nourished had no way to burn through the 8 treasures universe cauldron, but it was enough to burn the Precious Cauldron Demon. This Precious Cauldron Demon spirit was originally attached to the Precious Cauldron, and using the 8 treasures universe cauldron as its true body, it could transform into a doppelganger. Now that it had revealed its true body, it was in line with Yi Shiwen's intentions. The Precious Cauldron Demon constantly howled. What kind of flame is this? Why is it so vicious? Is this flame? I don't know what it's called, but it's enough to burn you to ashes. Yi Shiwen looked at the Precious Cauldron Demon, transforming into a humanoid doppelganger for a while, and then changing back into its true body. It fell heavily to the ground, and then flew into the air again, as if it had gone mad. His eyes were cold, without the slightest bit of sympathy. Today, if it weren't for his means, he would have died in the hands of this Precious Cauldron Demon. This itself was a battle of life and death. This Precious Cauldron Demon was worthy of being an expert of the celestial realm. Even if the spirit was burned by this kind of strange flame, an ordinary person would have been burned into charcoal in just a moment and finally be annihilated. However, this Precious Cauldron Demon persisted for a full half an hour before being burnt to ashes. Then, a huge 8 treasures universe cauldron appeared in the air, revealing its true body. Yi Shiwen's big hand stretched out and directly drew a dragon claw to grab the 8 treasures universe cauldron. Although the Precious Cauldron Demon had been burnt to ashes, this 8 treasures universe cauldron had no intention of giving in. A magic weapon like this already had its own spirituality. It was not the spirituality of the Precious Demon, but the treasure itself had its own spirituality and would resist being subdued by outsiders. Yi Shiwen wasn't in a hurry. He firmly grasped the 8 treasures universe cauldron, while constantly pinching the 8 treasures universe cauldron cultivation technique, and began to refine this 8 treasures universe cauldron. At this time, Yimo opened his mouth and said, Yi Shiwen, find a place to hide first. There are a lot of experts rushing over. Yi Shiwen sensed the surroundings, and sure enough, a tyrannical aura pressed over. Yi Shiwen directly controlled the big hand, grabbed the 8 treasures universe cauldron, and jumped into the river again. Sure enough, not long after he left, a tyrannical aura descended here. and unexpectedly, they were all experts of the half-step celestial realm or above. It's really strange. Just now I clearly felt the battle aura of a treasure demon of the half-step celestial realm. Why did it suddenly disappear? Did it run away? What a pity. If it is a treasure demon of the half-step celestial realm level, then its body is definitely at the top of the earth stage or even a low-level heaven stage instrument. If we can catch it, it will definitely be beneficial. These tyrannical auras were all experts of the half-step celestial realm level, with the battle aura of Yi Shiwen and the Cauldron Demon. Those who were not at this level simply did not dare to approach, and there was even no lack of experts of the half-step transcendence realm middle stage among them. Although the half-step celestial realm level treasure demon was also very difficult to deal with, in the eyes of these experts, it was just a fight of cornered beasts, and in the end, it was just a matter of wiping out its spiritual consciousness and returning to its original state. For them, these were just magic treasures, although these magic treasures had developed spiritual wisdom and cultivated human forms. But what difference did it make? This river corroded everything, and Yi Shiwen's aura was also isolated in it. These people absolutely could not think that Yi Shiwen could hide in this river, because even these experts of the half-step celestial realm could not do it. Yi Shiwen could freely enter and exit it by relying on his divinity, and because the body of the Cauldron Demon was a top-level heaven stage instrument, it was invulnerable, and Yi Xing and the others even had a special method to enter and exit. But it did not mean that everyone had such a method, and ordinary people could only stare blankly, not to mention that they did not know that Yi Shiwen was below. Even if they knew, they could not do anything. Yi Shiwen was sitting at the bottom of the river. Tianyuan mirror was constantly hovering above him. It was draping a blood-red curtain of light. It looked inconspicuous in the darkness, but it was protecting him. Yi Mo was also sitting cross-legged above Tianyuan mirror. He looked as dignified as a Buddha. He didn't look like a big devil. Yi Shiwen knew that Yi Mo was a devil lord, but his mental cultivation was extremely high. In fact, he might have already reached the level of the legendary gods. In fact, he would become a terrifying devil god as long as he possessed sufficient strength. However, killing was only a means for him. It wasn't the end for him. He wasn't like those ordinary devils who were filled with ruthless killing intention in their hearts. They would only kill for the sake of killing. He was a devil and could kill until blood flowed like a river. But he was also a Buddha, and it did not matter to him if he wanted to deliver all living beings from suffering. When one reached this realm, one could really become a Buddha, and one could become a devil. That was already an extremely profound realm. And perhaps, when one reached that realm, there was no difference between a Buddha and a devil. And how could they be obsessed with Buddha or devil like ordinary people? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.